Welcome to Chronic Curiosity, where we have real conversations with real people, from everything to anything, in attempts to facilitate dialogue with our fellow humans, and hopefully your curiosity as well as ours. If you can withstand the show, we ask, most importantly, that you tell your friends and family, but also you can pick up some merch or just donate to the show at chronic-curiosity.com in USD or Bitcoin. If you feel so obliged, you can give us a good rating and follow on whatever podcast platform you so choose. But please feel free to reach out to us on the website or the socials, which can also be found on the website, chronic-curiosity.com. And here we go. So
interesting hearing my voice. All right.
Yeah. Well, it also helps because it's maybe like adds to like the presence.
Yeah.
But like, because oftentimes like we when we start talking, it's just we get into conversations, and you don't realize when you get into a good conversation with more than just two people going, even if it's two people going back and forth, you talk over each other all the time.
Yeah. Or you're like waiting to like me. I'm like always like ready to say my side of what I think or whatever.
So like, but you end up like,
been working on that.
Yeah, but like the whole conversation is typically like people are talking over each other,
and
you don't recognize how much people talk over. Like, so it kind of helps kind of bring everything in because you can hear you, and I can hear you, and we can all hear each other. And
I like it.
Everything. Yeah. So as long as you basically just you want to be aiming at
probably about right here is good, right?
Wherever, but it doesn't matter. If you drift away from it, it's not that big of a deal. If you drift away too far, I'll be like, hey, remember, I know this is a conversation, but we're recording this too.
The only way I'll drift away is if I drink too much whiskey.
Too much of that. I got a whole other bottle of it. So
I won't be drifting away today.
Yeah, all right, amped up. Are we good? Yeah. So Juan,
yes,
thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we just kind of talked about preliminary. We've even talked about it on the show multiple times. Tony's like, "Are you going to tell them who's on the show? Are you going to introduce them?" So, but I'd like to kind of start doing a thing where just whoever it is, to get a background of where you came from, where you grew up, and because I realized the more and more people I talk to that I have never met before and I don't know,
sure, the
more I hear of who they are and where they came from and what got them to where they are at and all those things that it's a fascinating thing. Like we don't realize how I guess coming from my perspective, we just talked about you came over and I mentioned the high school that I graduated from is right down the road. And a lot of times people could look at me and say, all right, well, it's this typical, whatever you want to say. There's like these stereotypes that we all hold in our heads for what we understand and what we see of people. So, I will stop talking and let you. Yeah. So, Juan, thank you. And I guess, go from there.
Thank everyone for having me. I appreciate that. So I grew up in Colombia. So I was born in Colombia in South America. And, so we moved here when I was 9. And, I guess the reason why we moved was just at the time, Colombia was in just a terrible spot, like a lot of violence, a lot of drug cartel stuff. And we just wanted to get out of there. There was just a lot of negative experiences. So on my mom's side, my aunt lived here in Virginia. And she was like, hey, you guys should come out, change of life. Think you like it, So sure enough, we did. We moved to Virginia as we came here in like a what do you call it? Like traveling visa for like 6 months.
Had you ever been outside of the country since before then?
No, I can't. So, and I'll kind of touch base on that. Yeah. So,
before you moved to Virginia, like, because I feel like that'd be a pretty drastic.
No. Like, so it was an extremely drastic change, right? I'm like, okay, so I'm 9 years old. I'm in 5th grade, right? I think it was 5th grade. So, and then to give you a little bit more background, at the time, my mom and dad were separated. My dad had this emotional affair with someone at the church, and that caused a little bit of tension in the home, of course.
I could see that.
At the time, my dad moved out of the house, and I was always like my mom said, I was always like her little walking cane, like helped her through a lot of things. So her and I just like we just took off. My dad stayed in Colombia with my other two siblings, and yeah, we just took off. It was a big change, obviously, the culture shock, different atmosphere, different language, right? I don't know how to speak English at the time. I was in a bilingual school, but it's just not. You don't learn a lot of English. I mean, you just learn a few words, like
Right.
your main things, like hello, good morning, type thing. So that was a shock going into fifth grade again, because my math level, everything was great, but the only thing that I didn't know was English, so I had to be held back, I guess, and take fifth grade again to so I could learn English and kind of
Well, it's
adapt.
hard to understand what the teacher's saying, right? If you
Oh,
don't understand the language,
yeah, yeah, and then
it's
everyone's
difficult to.
talking in the classroom, and I just felt left out. It
Oh,
just,
right.
it's terrible. But something about adapting. I've always been. I think that helped me in life to adapt to things, right? To be able to, when change comes, which change is really hard for human beings. It's probably one of the hardest things. Just being able to adapt, right? So there was like one Spanish speaking student in the class, and she was really helpful. She was from Bolivia, and she was like the only one that would like, hey, this is what these guys are saying or whatever. This is what we're doing in the class.
Real godsend.
Yeah, yeah, she really was. And then so I took ESL, like English second language course,
Mhm.
and that's where I like really like I was like, you know what? I hate feeling this way. I don't want to feel left out anymore. I got to learn English. Like, you know, I got to learn it.
Yesterday.
Yeah. It's like, yeah.
Did your
So-
mom know English?
Barely.
So she was kind of in the same boat,
Same boat
as an adult.
Same boat.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So both of us were just, so yeah. So I took ESL. My mom took English courses on her own. Like outside, obviously I was in school. She was doing her own thing. And yeah, so I took ESL, and then my teacher, she was extremely helpful. Like she would have me write on like I guess like a journal, and I would write about my day. Um, and then what I would do is I'd watch cartoons at home, and I have a dictionary with me, and I would just, hey, okay, what's this word? And put subtitles. I'm like, what is this word? And like all day, like for hours, I would just be consumed like trying to figure out vocabulary and learn, because I was like, I'm not gonna get stuck in this where I like don't understand what people are saying. It's terrible. Like it's just, But being 9 years old, you can learn a lot faster. Obviously, your brain is still pretty like young, I guess.
Yeah,
And
sponge,
yeah. So it was easier for me to learn English than it was for my mom. My mom must have been, I don't know, in her 40s maybe.
Oof.
Yeah. So
I can't imagine.
yeah, speaking Spanish for so long, it's like, yeah. But
How long do you think it took you to kind of get to the point where you felt semi-comfortable to operate in a normal life, at least for the language part?
At least to be able to hold a somewhat decent conversation, probably about a year and a half or two, where I would understand things. And I was still like,
Right.
It's funny. I just like someone would say something, and I would like nod or something, and I'm like, okay, what is this word? And I go home. And,
Remember, so you jot it down.
I go home and jot it down. Like, what is this thing?
That was
like,
before,
what does this even mean?
Google in your pocket.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. This was this was pre-internet time. Yeah. I'm not that old, but yes, it was.
No, none of us. At that point, like it doesn't take much to say that, right?
But yeah, so no internet, no Google, just dictionary. Yeah. So anyway, I grew up in Virginia, in Vienna, Virginia. It's close to Richmond. I don't know. It's like 45 minutes away. So did fifth grade there. Learned my English. We were living with my aunt and my cousin and my uncle at the time, and my mom wanted to have her own independence, and she had a childhood friend that owned a business in Nashville, and he was like, "Hey, you should move to Nashville. It'd be great. Like, I can offer you this position. You can have your own place." And so, yeah, sure enough, like 2 years later, we again adapting again, moving. So yeah, we went from Virginia over to Nashville, and my mom got a job working for this company that sold it's like stuff for gardens, like pest control and things like that, which at the time was a pretty big company for that kind of stuff. And yeah, I had to go adjust again and meet new friends, and
Yeah, that's hard enough as it
adapt
is.
again. Yes.
Just moving towns.
Yeah.
At that age.
Yes.
But at least you knew English at this point. At least
I knew
enough to get you by.
Enough to get me by. Yeah,
Right.
enough to get me by. But I was still like, it was a nervous wreck because I was like, well, meeting new people again, and I don't know anything about Nashville. The kids in Virginia would just be like, oh, it's gonna be like really country there, and you're gonna have an accent, 10-year-old talk or whatever.
Right.
And I was just like, whatever. Like, I didn't have a choice. I just like, I'm going with mom, so I don't. I don't have a say in this. So we did. We moved to Nashville, and I got skipped 6th grade because my English was up to par, and for some reason in Colombia, or like algebra and all those things, like science was like more advanced at the time, I guess. Than
it's
here in America. I don't know. I don't know
like
why.
There's probably a lot of places that are much more advanced in America.
Like I had all those things like down. It's just the English was the only thing that I didn't have down. So
you have to know it to be able to explain that you know it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I moved started in Nashville, 7th grade. Lived there till let's recap a little bit. So mom and dad, right, split up, separated. They reconciled. I don't know like the whole full story of how they reconciled. I know that they kept in touch. Of course, they have 3 kids together. But my mom gave him, another shot, and like they reconciled, and my dad moved from Colombia with my sister at the time. My brother stayed in Colombia, and so they reconciled in Nashville. It was interesting.
I imagine.
I thought it was kind of like those situations. You don't really think about that much when you're young because you've never been in a relationship, so you don't really like understand like exactly what goes behind the scenes. But I could tell that it was like devastating for both of them to be far apart in different countries, and my dad not being able to see me, and my mom not being able to see him, and the other my other 2 siblings. So yeah, they reconciled, and then next thing you know, we're just like. Then eventually, my brother moved here too, so all of us are here, right? So yeah, 7th grade through senior year in Nashville, graduated high school there. Worked several jobs as I was in school. I went to college for a bit and trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. I just didn't know. You're young. You're trying to figure out what to do, and
I wasn't the handbook for that.
Yeah, there is no handbook for that. Yeah, I wasn't the guy that was like, oh, I'm going to be a nurse at 17, like without really knowing what all goes on in being a nurse, right, or whatever. I just didn't know. I had no idea what to do. So my way of going about it was like, I'm going to work different jobs, and I'm going to find out what this is like. Food industry. Then I did banking and worked in the paint business. The work, labor work, construction stuff, all those things. I'm just like, okay. And I did like some of them. I'm like, okay, well, I can learn this or whatever. But it was nothing I was like, okay, I really enjoy doing this, At that time, I must have been, I don't know, maybe 18, 19. And I got into fitness. So I got into working out. And I just loved it. Loved how it made me feel.
Yeah.
The results, everything, just kind of like being in that environment of positive attitude. Everyone has the same kind of drive of like getting better physically, mentally, and probably emotionally too. It has a lot to do with it.
I think that's a
which is
massive thing.
It's a huge one.
Yeah, we wonder. Well, we talk about there's all the news and everything else. Mental health and all these different struggles that people have, but also all the other things. You look at everything that's like the negative things in our culture in America that are really high. Mental health, I think we can all say is at the top of the list. Physical fitness, pretty much an endangered species, all and like diet, sleep, just the idea of enjoying life outside of money is often a foreign thought to people as well. Like, don't get me wrong, money's great, and I like money,
Yeah.
But I guess it's that money can't make you happy, but it sure does help.
Oh,
but there's how much of that is tied into all those things of, your mental health. If you're not happy with who you are and what you are and where you're at in life and trying to, figure it out.
Right.
It's
tough.
What else are you going to do? So sorry, I just.
No. Yeah. Please. You guys, anytime you want to jump in, please do. I don't want to feel like I can just go on forever. So trying to figure out life, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and also like find something that I would make decent money, right? You don't want to like, I feel like my train of thought at time was like, okay, I go to college, right? I get a degree, and then I wasn't like the most applied student at the time where I was like, had like scholarships and things, grants, all those things. I was focused on other things. I was young, whatever,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to be in debt, to pay off my career at some point. And like, am I gonna make enough money to pay off my debt? Or am I just gonna be always paying this debt off? Like, what am I gonna be doing here? Right.
Which is a massive issue today too.
College loans huge. Yeah. You were like 18 here, signed his loan.
Yeah.
Free money, right?
I saw a comedian skit the other day where he's like, these college student loans. He's like, what the hell are we doing? Basically, he's like, you can walk into the bank with like a 5-year business plan with like 10-year projections, 15-year projections, 20-year projections. They're like, get the hell out of here. Your credit's terrible. But 18 years old, hey, I want to pay $60,000 a year to go to college. Here's $500,000. Go for it. Like, what?
Exactly.
Like, what are we doing?
Exactly. Which is absurd. Like, I don't know how that even makes sense. Obviously, it doesn't. But yeah.
Well, it does because they can make money off of you.
Obviously,
indefinitely for the rest of your life, just like you said.
Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't want to do that. I never saw myself in the medical field just because it wasn't for me. But anyway, to kind of get things a little bit shorter, fitness was my thing, right? And I was like, okay, I want to do training. And then I did research on it, like, can you be successful or make decent money doing training? And yes, you can, right? It's a business where you're not selling a product. I mean, I guess you are the product, right?
Yeah.
You are selling yourself, and you are like, this is you. This is what I can help you do. But in general, it's hard. It's a hard business to and then to keep clients, right? I mean, to keep people that you're training, mainly because the people that seek help or seek training are whether they need accountability or motivation, or they just have a hard time growing muscle, whatever it is, right?
You're literally going after the most difficult customer ever. The ones that need motivation,
literally.
The ones that need accountability.
Yeah.
That's literally what you're doing as a fitness person, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I don't mean this a bad thing.
No, it's not. Yeah.
You either have to have super passion for it or just love selling yourself.
Right.
There's a niche there.
But it is. It really is. And I was like, here, why don't I go for one of the hardest businesses to kind of, do, right? Because it also has to do with demographics, like where you're at, what city you live in, how much can you charge a person to that can afford to be put through torture, which exercise is never. I mean, it can be fun, I guess, for some people, but it's not necessarily fun. It's, you're putting yourself through a lot of difficult things and pain and discomfort and things like that. So, finding people that want to do all that and then
don't have the motivation or accountability.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end saying, hey, pay me to help you do this, right? So I got into it. I mean, and then obviously there's always different ways to go about training. I mean, you can go big box gym and then, they take a lot of your money and you get a percentage of it, but they help you get the clientele. And then there's a lot of people that go into those big box gyms and, I guess it's easier to acquire them, but it's, you can't make as much because you're, the gym's taking a lot of the.
It feels like you're checking the time clock.
Right. And it's not really like running your old business, I guess, in a way, versus like, either you rent out a space or pay a fee and, to the gym owner. Yeah. And then, you can charge your own, your own rate, run your own schedule, that sort of thing. And I did want to have some sort of independence with that. I wanted to be able to like, hey, look at my schedule and, work around it and have a little bit of, I guess, flexibility. And
that's an important piece, right?
Yeah.
For most people, I think a lot of people in the last few years have recognized that with COVID, particularly those people that are that were at those, jobs that where they would be clocking in, especially if you're like it's probably even worse that like all the white collar people really got it good the last 3 to 4 years, because it's like, oh, now I don't even have to go to the office. I can do this like in my pajamas with a polo on. And they never leave home, like, and understanding, but that's the part why people want those jobs, because you have the ability, if you have the ability to be flexible and make your schedule, that's something that if that's what you want, there's some people that like run like 3 different businesses and like 2 other jobs. They work for other people and they, just love working apparently so much. Tony. But
someone's got to grind, Tony.
I feel like there's a lot of other different motivations there for what he does. And we've obviously talked about that on the show of, with the addiction piece, and, I like to give him a hard time. But, if time and flexibility is important to you, and if that's because to me, I totally feel that. I get that. Like when I don't need somebody to be breathing down my neck all day long to tell me to do a job.
Right.
Like, tell me what you want done and I'll get it done. But I also don't know if I necessarily want to run my own like big business.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. And it's constant. You can never turn it off. So that's one of those things that I've found, if you can find the happiness in what you're doing and the pieces and parts that you enjoy about it. So it's like, all right, if I have a little bit of flexibility and I can go on vacation and not have to worry about it. Cause you can't do that as a business owner.
No,
you don't really, right, Tony, you don't really get a vacation, right? When you leave, it's still there regardless.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, but some people love that. Some people thrive on that. So, but to your point, find what you love doing, right?
Right.
And find what you can isn't quote unquote work, even though I hate that saying, because it's always work. Would you be doing it if you weren't getting paid for it?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It goes back to that. And even like people that are like, well, find something you're passionate about, but at the same time, you can be passionate about something and it may not pay that well. Right. Like I'm passionate about rescuing dogs and helping dogs and all these things, and I would love to, but I don't think it's not a very profitable business. I'm gonna be,
and you need tile floors.
Yeah.
No carpet.
Yeah, like and like I would love to do that if I had the capital and invest in whatever, helping dogs out and get them in the right homes and all this. But it's more like a nonprofit type thing, you know, rather than like So training. Just became a thing for me, and I think I get kind of like a rush from helping people achieve things that typically they wouldn't be able to achieve on their own.
Yeah.
So fitness is one of those things that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of consistency, a lot of mental capacity to put yourself through. Like walking on the Stairmaster every morning at 6 a.m.
So
I know a guy like that.
So for those, I got yelled about that. I got yelled at about this from a listener. That however, they really like to know how we know the guest. And this person, they yelled at me because they like, you never talked about how you know them. I was like, well, because I didn't know them at all. Like it was the first time I met them. So like I didn't, but you also work at the gym that I frequent.
Yes.
And that's kind of how we met each other.
Right.
And I happen to go every morning and start on the stairs, and it's miserable and I hated it.
Yeah.
He the other day, he's like, how do you do that every morning? I said, I fucking suffer through it every morning. That's the only way. It sucks. Like it's not fun.
Yeah.
But because I know myself and I know if I don't do this, the very first thing, if I don't do the suckiest thing, I'm probably not going to do it. And if it sucks, particularly with physical fitness, if it sucks, that's probably exactly what you should be doing.
You got it right. you answer my question every morning. I'm just sitting there like, oh, I can't. I'm like barely awake at 6, and there's Fred, getting on the Stairmaster and going at it. I'm like, oh. But yeah, so it takes a lot of work, and when to kind of go back a little bit in time to get how I even got to Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because you're still in Tennessee at this
I'm still
point.
in Tennessee. Yeah, we're going all over the place. So I'm still in Tennessee. Into fitness. I like it. I enjoy it. But I'm still working all these different jobs, right? My same aunt that lived in Virginia moved over to Oregon. She ended up going there. One of my...
That's like halfway across the world.
Pretty much. Literally, yeah. Right across in Oregon. Like, no one really talks about Oregon unless you live in Oregon and whatever. But yeah, she... my cousin, who has a spina bifida, it's like a spine thing that affects him, and he can't walk and all these things. He wanted to go to school for some kind of marine biology or something. And OSU, which is school there in Oregon, had like a really good program and all these things. So, and they liked it over there. So they, from Virginia, they went over to Oregon, and my mom and my aunt were still very close and talk back and forth. And that's kind of like the only immediate family we have here. All our other families back in Colombia. So she's like kept telling her about Oregon and all this thing. So eventually my mom and dad just, here I am in Nashville, and then my parents go to Oregon. So I stayed in Nashville because at the time I was working for Sherwin-Williams, paint company, and I was kind of moving up the ranks there.
Right.
Not necessarily enjoying the job. It was just one of those things that, like, it's like you become a sales associate, and then through time management, and then sales rep stuff, and the money was real good. I mean, being a sales rep, right?
Yeah. Those three things usually go together.
Yeah.
Good money, climbing the ladder, and not enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah, literally, and not enjoying it. Yes.
Usually
definitely put that in there because it wasn't like my thing. It wasn't
like the Jacob's ladder. That's a motherfucker.
Just like the Jacob's ladder. Yeah. So I was like, no, I don't know if this is something I want to do, but it worked out for me at the time because I was bilingual, and a lot of our customer base there was Spanish speaking, so I could communicate with them. They seeked my help a lot because they felt like they could connect with me easier, right? Just speaking the same language and that sort of thing. And so I was doing that for a while, and here's my mom and my aunt like, hey, you should come check out Oregon, right? I'm like, all right, whatever. So I did. I went there for like a Christmas. It was like, I can't, 2013 maybe 14. I went there, and she was like, hey, I'll pay for your school. You come out here and restart your life and so. And I was like, okay, well. Same time, I was like, what am I going to go to school for? Like, I still don't know what to do. I still don't know. Like, I like exercise and I enjoy everything that has to do with training, but I don't know if I want to go. I mean, the thing at the time was like exercise science was like the only thing that was like related to what I wanted to do. So I was like, you know what? I liked Oregon. I don't know. It was different. I lived in the eastern states and southern states, I guess, mostly. So Oregon was just different. I like the outdoor stuff of it, and I don't know. Sometimes I like change, even though change is difficult and weird. It's just like I'm like, let's go for it, So, I was kind of burnt out at Sherwin-Williams too, to be honest.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, I was just like, So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. So sold a lot of my belongings, packed up my stuff, and here I go on the Oregon Trail, Yeah. So I moved to Oregon, and here I am, like in Oregon, like completely different type of place. It's just very different.
In Oregon were you?
So I landed in Corvallis, which is about an hour and a half from Portland. It's where Oregon State University is. So it's a college town, but it's real cool. I enjoyed every bit of living there. It was new, and there was a lot of outdoor stuff to do, and I like to do a lot of outdoor stuff like hiking, kayaking, playing soccer. I used to play soccer quite a bit at the time, and so it all just it was perfect. at the time. So moved to Oregon, went to school there for a bit. I was looking for a place to play soccer in the wintertime, and they had an indoor place. And that's where I was like, hey, I need to find a place to play. And sure enough, I find this place. It was great. It was like so indoor place, turf, covered. And then you go in, you go upstairs, and it's a pub. So you
So
can watch.
there's a pub,
There's a pub upstairs. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that
which is
sounds
crazy,
dangerous,
right? Yeah. So you got a pub upstairs.
All the cardio, I guess, helps with all the beer intake, right?
So in Oregon, they're big about their beer. Like they brew a lot of IPAs and porters and all that stuff. So, yeah, it was like people watch the games while they're drinking beer and eating their pup food.
What a good idea!
So it's a fantastic idea. Yeah,
just you go up there and so you could, just in case you might be able to catch a game.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting because most people, they'll play their game and then they go upstairs and have a beer and eat some food and watch another game if they wanted to. Or sometimes you'd be up there drinking a beer and they're like, "Hey, we need a sub, or we need someone to come down." You're like a beer, like halfway into a beer. Like, I guess I'll go play.
I stop
cool
at 3. If I have 3, that's too many to try to run around do that.
We're not doing that again. No. Where I like going there after drinking a few. It's just it's a terrible idea. So yeah, I was looking for work at the time while I was going to school, and they were hiring someone in the front desk to kind of run their membership stuff. They had a shop there where they sold all kind of soccer equipment and things, and so I did that. And then I was also doing this thing called Little Kickers. It's like coaching kids to play soccer. It was interesting. I mean, they're not.
I'm sure it was really.
I was like, that was my first experience dealing with kids, and I was like, oh my gosh.
You just gotta be ready for
something
chaos.
Else. I was like,
you have to accept the chaos.
Not listening. Yeah, it was.
As long as no one, it's like as long as no one dies when you're coaching kids, you're like, succeeded.
Yeah, I somehow did okay at that. I mean, it was like, I don't know, like
you seem like you have the right temperament to be able to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it was like frustrating sometimes, but I mean, I was like, okay, whatever. They're, I was expecting already that there's not going to be like some kind of an advanced like soccer camp or
we're
whatever.
Not actually playing soccer over here. We're just
kind of
fun.
Learning how to kick the ball around and follow instructions and that sort of thing. But it's whatever. It's a good program for the kids. Enjoy it.
If nothing else, it's a good thing for them to just run around and get some exercise. If nothing else, right? We had our kid tried soccer. Within it was 5 minutes in to her first game, and she was probably 7 or 8 or something like that. 6. Oh, okay. But 5 minutes in, she just stops. This is a lot of hard work. Yeah, it's soccer. You knew this.
It is.
That's not a sport for me either. It's too much running.
But a lot of running.
Yeah,
and I think that's why I hate running now. I just I did too much of it when I was younger, and I just.
But your heart's healthy though, so
I think so for the most part.
Yeah, they say that's good.
But yeah, so I did that, and then at the pub I would go sometimes, play games, work there, and then one of my coworkers happened to be Katie. She was my ex-wife, right? She was the girl that worked at the pub upstairs, and we hit it off. We were good friends for a while, and she was the one that kind of put in the good word about me. This guy from Tennessee came over here and he's looking for a job and whatever, going to school. So it just worked out. It was all good. I found a job there, playing soccer.
So she was your ex-wife then?
She
later became your ex-wife.
Later became my ex-wife.
Okay.
Yes. That's how we met. Yes, okay. Sorry. That's how we met. And she worked there at the pub. I was already kind of physically attracted to her when I saw her. And her personality was cool. We kind of got along pretty well. So I was like, So we became friends. And through time, we worked there maybe a year and a half or 2 together. And, we would go out more or whatever. And I was just kind of like, I didn't want to mess up that friendship that I had with her because I didn't know if she was into me like that or whatever.
All right.
But yeah, through time, we just kind of started connecting and getting along way better. And I'm still in Corvallis, and then she's finishing school at the time, and she was like, "Yeah, I kind of want to go to Portland and finish like a couple of classes that I have left, and just live in Portland because Portland's just a bigger city, and there's a lot more opportunity and that sort of thing." And I was like, "Oh crap!" She's like, she's leaving, and I'm like, at the time, I'm liking her like that.
You caught feelings.
I'm like, dude, I like this girl. Like, that sucks. Like, she's about to leave, and there was like other potential, whatever, dating partners at the time, but they just like didn't compare, right? It was like, yeah, physical attractions there, but like I think the more how we got along was like what I enjoyed more, kind of what I was looking for.
Sometimes one just glimmers a little more than the most.
Oh yeah, I guess yeah. If you want to, yeah. So I'm like, okay, crap, she's going to Portland. What am I gonna do here or whatever? I'm like, I need to go to Portland too. So I did. I was like, you know what? I'll go to Portland too. It's like, you need a roommate or something. Like, she's like, we had another friend of us that was going to Portland as well to finish school. I was like, I'll just tag along. Yeah. So we moved to Portland and as friends still, right? And then eventually, I think she wasn't very good about like opening up as far as like feelings and stuff, but for this whole time she was like interested in me as well, and she just didn't want to be, I guess, rejected or vulnerable or whatever. But she was like hoping that at some point I would just be like, hey, say something to me, like, do you want to date me or whatever? And I was just like, I was just so like oblivious to that at the time, like, and I still am sometimes, like when someone's like, when someone's attracted to you, and I guess physically or intellectually, I guess you just kind of, you smile a lot, and a lot of eye contact, a lot of whatever, but you just never know. And I think no one really wants to like be rejected. Right. I'm like, oh, I like you. And like, oh, well, I don't. Like, oh,
yeah, oh shit,
not like that. I like you, but
I crossed those wires.
Yeah,
well, I think too. Like, it's like, I think part of it too. I don't know. Obviously, you've had. I'm gonna go off on an assumption path here.
Go ahead.
So you tell me if I'm wrong on this one or not. But at least maybe I can connect with this a little bit. So, I from around the same age, really, as you. My parents had split up. They split up younger, but I kind of lost my dad. It kind of started fading out at about 9-10 or so, and kind of whatever. So I was around my mom. Well, I also had 2 sisters. So like I grew up around women. Like literally, like, so I always like, and had this like level of like, I don't know if it was respect or like I just felt like I should because that's how my mom raised me, whatever it was. But it was like it's almost a fear of being too, it wasn't even a fear of being too manly or anything like that, or being too aggressive, but it was like, I don't know, I guess I grew up with a sort of reverence, I guess. And you don't want to be that jerk that like is assuming or like, like, oh, like, or get turned down. Right. Cause that's almost even worse sometimes. Yeah. So like sometimes being that, sometimes people look at it as like being a gentleman. Sometimes it's that, well, the last guy finishes last too, because he never takes the chances. So it's like finding that balance of, all right, where do I take my chances, and when do those chances like just become too far and you're just a jerk? Like trying to sort those things out in a relationship or that you don't know with another person that you're trying to figure out. And it's like, I don't want to screw this up because we're friends. So I could see that being friends with somebody of the opposite sex and being like, man, like I like them, but I don't want to screw it up. So how far is too far? So then you just never go far enough to ever to do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it goes down to like, hey, you just got to take the chance. Like, okay, whatever. I mean, you're going to get rejected more than likely if she doesn't feel that way. But at the same, I think it's your ego is just,
there's that too.
The ego is literally there. Like you just don't want to get turned down. Right. But I also didn't want to like, I think I could cope with her just being like, oh, I'm not interested in that way or whatever. And then, be sad for a little bit and then take my loss and then walk off, right? But I wanted to maintain that friendship with her. So
Because it's hard to do that after something like that.
Right.
It's difficult.
Yes.
I guess it can be done, but
yeah. And then we had our little thing like where we started going out more often, her and I as friends still. And then, we got intimate at some point and became intimate, I guess sexually or whatever, a few times. And then after that, obviously, even more emotional, more like connected. Right. And then I was like, well, I noticed that she was kind of like getting all like kind of distant, but I didn't know why. I was like, okay, she like, what is this? Like, is she not digging it? Or is she just like, I didn't know at the time, but she didn't express her, like I said, she's never been very expressive of her feelings or whatever, sharing how she feels, this and that. And I didn't know. So eventually one day she's just like acting really weird or whatever. And I'm like, hey, I'm like, what's going on? Like, you seem a little off. And I finally got out of her. I couldn't believe I got her. But she was hoping like that I would just say, hey, can we date? Can we like be together in a romantic relationship? And I didn't know. I just like had no idea, So I was like, well, yeah. I was like, heck yeah. So yeah. So then we hit it off.
I've been waiting for you to ask me this the whole time too.
So weird enough, like it's been one of those things where you just like, you don't want to be vulnerable, right? Mm-hmm. And you just like, you kind of get scared about it because of the whole rejection aspect. But then I just, then she shut down a little bit. And I was like, why are you shutting down? Like, what's going on? I thought we were like hitting it off. And so she finally was like, yeah, like, then we started dating. And then we got, it was great. The first, I don't know, maybe 2 years of our relationship was fantastic. Just the whole intimacy thing, getting to know one another, sharing a lot of the same values. And obviously there's some things that her and I didn't like agree on completely. There's always going to be something like that. But for the most part, it was like, okay, this is awesome. She met my family. I met her family. Great. Just through time, it just kind of, we grew as a couple and became more intimate and this and that. And to kind of like give an idea of where I'm going with this is like, when you get in a relationship, you just don't know what you just start as typically maybe as friends, or you start romantic, whatever. But you just go with it. You just go with the flow. You don't just like over examine everything about the relationship. You're just, I guess, you've fallen in love with this person, right?
Well, there's so much that's happening. Like there's so much coming at you from another person. And that type of, I look at it as like that type of relationship. You have so much going on at the same time, where some of those things just kind of fly past you, maybe.
It is. Yeah. And I was building such good connection with her, and I've always been a very like committed person when it comes to I guess just being loyal to someone and like being there for them. And I like that. I was like, man, this feels good, like it's great to, if she needs me, I'm there, like whatever, emotionally, or hey, like this happened in my car. Oh, I'm terrible at fixing cars, but here I am coming to help you or whatever. It was just good. It felt good to have that with her. And so yeah, you just never learn. You just go with it. And through time, I think, to give you a little bit more background on this, since we're going to get into what we're going to talk about today, you become more complacent and comfortable with your partner through time, especially after you've been living with them. The routine, work, all those things kind of like after time, you just kind of lose track of the value that they bring to your life, I think. And I guess that's how I felt for looking back at how things kind of fell apart with me and her. So it's like, well, had I done this, when things fall apart, you just kind of beat yourself up over all the things that you should have done or shouldn't have done, all those things.
Well, I think that's an interesting point too, is if anyone's ever had like a roommate or multiple roommates, and understand what it's like to live with somebody, that's not like your sibling or your parents, or some like your grandparent, someone, that's real close to you. Like, but to live with another human being that may or may not give a shit about what you're doing, or what is going on
Right.
in the same realm that you're living in. Like, that can be difficult. If you have a bad roommate, it's like very easily do you go from, hey, we're friends, to I fucking hate you. Like, I never want to see your face ever again. But then I think taking that to like a marriage where people forget that not only, you know, yeah, you're married, you're everything. You're your roommates. Yeah, you are literally, especially if you share the same bed, your bed mates, like, and the list goes on and on and on. Like, all those things compile. And when more than one or two of those things kind of fall out of place and aren't great, like, the more things you have together, it can last a lot longer without ever getting to the point of just fucking, I hate your face, get out of here, because you have so much else built together too. Right. So it's like, again, there's so much that some of those things kind of slide for a while.
And then, through time, I mean, we were together, I'd say, I don't know exactly, it's probably about 8 or 9 years together. Like, since we started living together. Right. Well, I guess we met before, you know, we worked together. So I guess in general, probably about close to 10 years, like, being friends and starting to be romantic, living together and everything. And I guess where I'm going with this is after so much time together, you like you said, you are a roommate with this person, you're a bedmate, you share bills, you share
your financial mate,
you're, you know, everything. You share bills, you share too, and then you also share your emotions and your things that go on in your daily basis, like whatever happened at work, what happened with your family, loss in the family, all those
vulnerabilities.
Exactly. Like, you know, all the things that you're pretty much an open book to this person. And then it's like being able to deal with all that after a while, I guess it just can be overwhelming, and you just don't realize that it's so overwhelming. But yeah, so her and I dated, we got a dog, we lived together for I think 6-7 years or something. And then I could tell she wanted me to like propose, and you know, she wanted to take it to
she probably wanted you to do it 2 years prior. Probably if I could read the situation.
Yes, I am terrible. Like, here's what's
maybe
funny.
She just wasn't giving you the right signs. Maybe you're not that. I'm not saying you're not bad. I'm not saying you don't suck at seeing signs. I'm just saying,
God, I think I'm just like, I think a lot of people may be like this. They're just like scared of assuming things, and like I said, she just wasn't very like, hey, one day I'd like to get married. Like, we talked about that stuff, but I like never knew how much
timeline,
how much time. Yeah, she wasn't like, by this time I need to, you know, we need to be engaged or this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's also a warning flag.
That's
also scary.
I'm glad that. Wait a minute. Yeah, and I'm glad.
And by the way, you have to spend X amount of money on my ring too. Whoa. Wait.
Yeah. Right.
That's
exactly.
a flag.
That's a flag. Yes, yes, it is. Big one. She was just more like, I guess we wanted to see how we lasted together, like as far as living together. And I mean, we dated maybe probably 5 years before I even thought about, you know, proposing.
Well, you know what? It takes a lot of, you know, internal, I guess, investigation before you know you want to have a threesome with the government. It takes a lot of soul digging there to make sure you really want to do that, right? It's always been a little weird to me, but I also
and I just like, I've always found marriage to be such a, I don't know, like a very sacred thing, you know, like it's a big deal.
I understand that people look at it that way too. I was obviously making a joke.
No, I know.
I believe in, but
no. I didn't mean to be like so serious about it.
I totally get why people like, I understand. I was obviously making a joke, but I totally understand how people like view marriage, especially, you know, your religious beliefs or you know, your culture or your upbringing. I totally get why people view marriage as a sacred thing. And I do too. Mm-hmm. I just think the legal aspect of it is just weird to me.
Yeah.
That's the part that I'm like, if we can get rid of like the legal thing, it's like, I don't understand. Like, it seems weird.
And I agree with you on that. I think the legality of it is kind of like, I think sacred as in like you're really giving yourself to this person like fully, right?
Yeah.
Without this whole signing of documents and
that's the weird part to me.
Yeah, the government's coming into place.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sacredness of it was like pretty like, man, like, okay, now I'm like, even though I was already extremely faithful to her, she was the only person I obviously enjoyed being with and all those things, and I picture having a family with, all those things. For some reason, just thinking about marriage just makes it a lot more real, even though you're still the same two people.
Right.
The only thing that changes, you're just signing a document that says you're going to be forever happy and this and that, right? But, and that's the thing, like,
I'm cool with the celebrations and the ceremony, like in the doing it, like even in the, whatever, you take it to the furthest end of the spectrum, like whatever, like religious form you do. I think some of those, like those wedding ceremonies, like, I don't know what it is about like watching like a Jewish wedding ceremony. It just makes me smile. Like it looks like such a fucking fun time. I'm like, I think those people know how to party. Like I get that part of it.
Yeah.
And like I get like the the joining of these two. Like I get the whole ceremony part of it. But again, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I just want to make sure. I want to make that clear. I got a soft heart for that too. I get it.
I think and it is a beautiful thing. It's just people that are not in relationships or people who are in relationships don't ever look at it. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get along with this person? Like,
every single minute.
I mean, are you able to tolerate this person after a while? Are your goals aligned? Your needs, right? There's a lot of that, and I don't think you really put a lot of emphasis in that until you're like, oh yeah, and like, or when there's difficult times, right? There's always going to be difficulty in whatever relationship, especially in a romantic one, right? Yeah. Whether it's financial or whether it's communication or respect or loyalty, all those things, right? So it's finding like, how am I going to be able to live this life with this individual and be able to commit to all these things, right? And be able to make it work. Because it takes two. It will always take two to make it work.
Absolutely. Well,
right?
I think at least it takes 1.5. I think. Taking this backwards, I think there's unfortunately, I think there is a lot of marriages that last because one person is trying to make it. Maybe not a lot. There's marriages where one person's trying to make it work and the other person's just too scared to say it's not going to. That happens too. I think there's all different variations. Like both people are too lazy to be like, this is just too difficult for us. Or hey, we could, maybe not lazy. They don't think about enough to going like, look, like we're semi-miserable all the time.
Right.
But like, hey, maybe we could find like happy lives separate, or hey, maybe if we actually like communicated together and tried to make this thing work, it could be a really good relationship, but good relationships they're built and they're maintained.
Absolutely.
Just like like a house. If you build a really, really beautiful house and just let it sit there and no one touches it for 30 years, it's not going to be in great shape. Just because it's still standing there after 30 years does not mean it's some beautiful thing that you really, move in ready. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it takes maintenance like throughout the whole process, whether it be friendships, marriages,
whatever anything. It is. Yeah. Any human interaction that takes like being with one another, sharing things with one another. Yeah.
There's going to be some holes in the drywall every once in a while, right? Hopefully not from like fists or anything. That's fists. Not like that. That's not what I meant. I just meant like there's going to be things that need patched up. Yeah. That's all I meant.
Painting the weirdest.
That was the weirdest picture. That's not what I meant. Funny. I meant that things are going to have to be patched up every once in a while.
Is that why there's so many
no. No. If you're putting holes in drywalls, you should probably consider why you're doing that and think about that. Yeah, because that's not a healthy thing to do.
Join a boxing class or
or something. Yeah, I just meant you're gonna have to make repairs.
Yeah,
sometimes you're gonna have to patch things up. Sometimes someone's going to back into the garage door on accident
Yeah.
or something like that. That's never happened.
I never did that. Just to clarify, I feel like he's painting the weirdest picture of our potential marriage that he doesn't actually believe in. But
no, our garage is way too. Our garage is way too full of my shit. She doesn't get to park in the garage.
Yeah.
So there's no chance in her she's going to back into it because of all my shit. So, no. Yeah. Sorry.
That's funny.
But so there's, it takes work.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot to work. And I think, like you said, it's not really laziness. I think it's hard work being with someone and making it work. You're like, I'm going to be with this person forever. It's like forever is a long time, right? Long time. And then you may say that when things are fantastic, but when things are starting to be rocky and, you're working like a 12-hour shift and you come home, you're exhausted, and then you're not communicating with your spouse or whatever, and she's expecting maybe a kiss or a hug, and you're like, I'm too tired or whatever, grumpy from work. And through time, all that stuff will add up and will turn someone off, right? Whether it's the guy or the girl, whatever, And I think it's just what it is. It just happens a lot. And the reason I wanted to talk about all this stuff is because I think there's not much like we talked earlier, there's no education on, or people don't seek to be educated in this matter, because you just go with it. You just fall in love, and love it is, right? But I think there are ways to learn about like what attracts you to one another and how to keep the marriage alive, or how to keep a relationship alive. And there's a book that after things fell apart with my ex-wife that I read that I was like, man, this is like this. I needed this before the marriage, right?
What book's that?
It's called The Art of Falling in Love, and it's by this guy named Joe Beam. He's a doctor, and he's been researching and studying marriages for a couple of decades or something like that, and understanding why relationships fall apart, understanding attraction, like what makes someone fall for another person and all that sort of thing. And it's really important to understand these 4 points that he talks about in this book. I think it's really important, actually. And typically when you like someone, when you initially start, there's a physical attraction, which is great. You physically like each other. That's kind of like the gateway to
you gotta catch your eye, right?
Yeah, you catch your eye. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like, you're more than likely going to like this. Typically, you're always going to like this person.
Yeah, well, it's
physically.
not. Yeah, it's usually not often where you're like, well, that person's hideous.
Yeah, like
I think I love you.
I love you. Yeah,
like, what?
Yeah, exactly. and then you have so you have the physical attraction, then you have intellectual attraction, which is typically how you communicate with your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, and the conversations that you can hold, the interests that you have together, whether it's different interests, whether yours is sports and hers is whatever, but being able to hold those things and kind of like, man, this is cool. Like you can have that with this person. And then you got like spiritual attraction, which is typically whether it's like your religion or your faith or your morals, your values, the things that you share together, like as a couple, like political views or just things like that, morals. And I think that's really important. Most of the time you're going to see that when people date or they're married, they're more than likely, both of them will be both conservative or both liberal, more than likely, for the most part.
Yeah, unless they're really good
at being able to
share
to not, which
that'd be difficult.
It'd be difficult, right? Because you want to share those same morals and values with your significant other. And then you got emotional stuff, emotional attraction, which is typically like the feelings that you evoke out of someone, like, so how I make you feel, right? And that's typically how you attract someone a lot. Like, man, you make this person smile, and you make them feel good and all these things. But then through time, when you get so comfortable with someone, you start nagging or you start saying things that are like negative.
Yeah. Or you start seeing all the little flaws.
The little flaws, yes.
They stand out more and more.
Yeah. So you become kind of critical, I guess, or you become a lot more you lose your filter, for lack of words, and then you just point things out that maybe, for example, this is whatever example. Let's say you go out and you're swimming, right? You go out to a pool and you're swimming, and she's got the bathing suit on. I've never said this to my ex-wife, but like, oh,
he's painting the picture. He's painting the bad picture.
That's not.
He's painting the bad picture.
This is a picture that is not has nothing to do. But it's a good example of like, how are you going to make this person feel, right? So you go out swimming, whatever. She's got the swimsuit on, and like, hey, you look great, but probably look better if you lost 10 more pounds.
Yeah,
or
that's probably not the way to say that.
It's terrible, right?
It's terrible way to say that. There's better ways to say that.
Better ways to say that. Yes. I guess it's just a way. It's like, how are you going to
that's the point, right?
Yes.
There's better ways to say
better
that.
ways to say that. Yeah. Or just keep it to yourself, or be like, hey, let's go work out together, right? Or something like that. Whereas you're not like, I guess, attacking the individual or making them feel lesser or whatever. And I think that's where a lot of relationships fall apart, or that's a big aspect of it, is where you start making the other person have negative emotions. Right. And if you think about it, when you meet like very charismatic people, right? They're very outgoing, and they make you feel some like very positive and stuff and things like that. But if you're like with someone that's negative and like very grumpy, or it makes you feel kind of like, man, uncomfortable.
You see the person, you're like, oh,
man, I don't really want to be around this person, right? So it kind of goes back to that. I mean, in a relationship, over time, like if you start being all grumpy and like not being affectionate and doing all this negative stuff, it's gonna turn your spouse off.
It
does.
That's super important.
It's extremely important.
It's insanely important that I think that you said most people don't realize it every day, because you are with this person every day. And most of the time, for a general sense, you're married to somebody. Even if you're super busy and all you're doing is falling asleep in the same bed, and particularly if you're super busy and you have these, cursory passings, and those things slowly build up over time, and just over and over and over again. And nothing is ever significant, but it adds up. And then you slowly, it's like you're sanding away at this connection that you have with somebody. And Cass and I have talked about it plenty of times before, at least together, that like the impact, like you said, when you come home and you're grumpy, instantly you're affecting anybody around you.
Absolutely.
Whether it's like your spouse, right? Or you go to the grocery store and I guarantee if you go to the grocery store and put on a super fucking pissy face and walk around and act pissy, there's going to be people that are, they can like almost feel it. You'll push them away.
Yeah.
Just because they sense it. And how's your spouse going to feel like that? If you come home that way, or if they come home and you're that way. It instantly, they're going to know, because they spend how much time with you. They know you for how many years, all this time. Like,
exactly.
They're going to, and I think there's more of that. They actually feel that than we'd like to pretend that maybe people do.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to push back on just a tiny little bit. You said that they know. So I think a really big problem in any sort of relationship is just assuming that your partner knows what you're thinking or what you're feeling. So you have said before, hey, when you come home and you're really sad or you've had a shit day at work, like, I am extremely affected by your feelings. So like, I'm not telling you to fake it when you get home, but you have let me know, like, you are adjusting the temperature of this house when you come home from a 12-hour shift, which I often do. But if you hadn't told me that, subconsciously, like, I'm not an idiot. I know that you are affected and Kai is affected by my mood, but you have to be able to put yourself out there and say, you are negatively affecting me when you come home this way. So don't fake it. Maybe check it at the door.
Yeah, I didn't mean like that you knew that. I just mean like that we like they know as men, like we feel, like people feel it.
Feel it. Yes.
Yeah.
Their body knows. Not like maybe they don't recognize it. So you're right.
So just like being the person who comes home and is like having like a hard day, or a hard day, you get a pass. You don't have to be in control of setting the temperature. Like, y'all can figure your shit out every now and then. But when it's repeatedly, you need someone to say, willing to step out and possibly have an altercation and say, hey, you're affecting the temperature of this house when you come home, with your vibe. So, 12-hour shift, I have 10 minutes before I get home. Run through some shit you're grateful for if you've had a bad day, because it is going to affect everything.
It's
and
huge.
then how you're received when you come home also changes that,
Absolutely.
so it's both, it's both people.
Yeah.
I know when he's grumpy, I want to take a step back and I want to give him space, and I'm just like, I don't want an altercation, but he's like, I need you to be extra lovey, for lack of a better term, because when I step back, then he's even colder.
It just gives me more
space. It gives you more space to feel that way.
And he doesn't need it.
But that's good that you both communicate that to each other. It's great.
It's years in the making.
Exactly.
It takes time, right?
It takes time. Yeah.
We never discussed those things the first 5 years.
8 year, whatever.
So it's just
because you don't think about it.
But you have to have,
and you have to develop it with the person that you're developing that relationship with.
Absolutely.
And I've even as far as like business partners, like you have to, whatever it is, if you're developing a relationship with somebody, you have to understand how that person works and thinks, and how do I fit into their puzzle, and how do they fit into mine?
Right.
And then, all right, now if we can figure out what bugs the shit out of her that I do, or what I can do to, make her feel better, or what, when my business partner or whatever it is freaking out about this scenario. Okay. How do I calm them down in order to fix this problem that we're having? Because it's oftentimes that those emotional responses that we're receiving are like side effects of drugs. It's a side product of something else that's happening. It's all right. So what's going on? Let's figure out, a lot of times people are like, all right, get to the core of the issue. Well, oftentimes you have to diagnose the symptoms before you can ever even get to the core of the issue, because you don't know what the core, you have to figure out what the core is, right? You have to figure out what the problem is. So if, that relationship that someone's having, or the mood that they're affecting with somebody else is, they just had a hard day at work and they're tired, and all they need is an extra, hey, let me get you some dinner, go take a shower, let's relax. And that's all it took for them to like just have that little bit of moment, taking a shower, and they have food ready and their belly's full. Like, then it's like game changer, just because they're tired. But if it's, look, if you're pissed off at me for something specific, all right, well, now we have to figure out what's going on. We have to talk about this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes, but people, again, our egos get in the way.
They do.
And it's like, you came home pissy. I was home, got the house clean. I did dinner, like all this other things. And now you come home and you're just pissy, and you're being irritated with me for just why?
Why?
Yeah. Why you? And then now it's, well, you're giving that negative energy feedback loop. So it's like, and at some point, the line has to be drawn, right? You don't want to be a doormat either.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Can't.
But sometimes, because we've discovered this over years and years, it's not like she said, fake it. But it's kind of like fake it till you make it, in a sense, where it's, all right, I know, there's a thing we do in our household almost every day. When any of us like gets up, how'd you sleep? Because we know that if you slept like shit, you're probably going to need some extra grace.
Oh yeah.
Right. We ask our 11-year-old, hey, how'd you sleep? And if we know she's like, she walks out, and sometimes we can see it in her face. Oh, not very good. Like, I can see that. And I know that now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to handle this day a little differently, but like, so it's just those little things of gauging, where's this other person at that I know well, and that's a big piece of that, is you have to open up space in your life for them too, so you can understand them. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's just
I guess it falls into communicating, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I always used to think that was bullshit when I was young. They'd be like, "Oh, what's your advice for young couples? You got to go build communication." It's like, what the fuck is that? Communication.
Yeah, right.
I'm 20 years old. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
Right?
Not till you go through all of it. And then you're
I don't even know how to communicate with myself.
But yeah. So I think that's the most important part when it comes to keeping that relationships stable, I guess, and it not falling to where you're making this person feel those little feelings every day or every other day, where they just compile, and the next thing you know, this person just lost the emotional feelings and attraction that you used to give them back in the day when you first started dating, when you made them laugh all the time and you gave them those nice hormonal things like dopamine and everything, as far as like, oh, this is so great, I love this person, I love being around this person. And that's how it always is. That's how you always fall in love with someone. You have all this like, man, I love being around this person. But then you get all this negativity later on when you get so comfortable with them. And like you said earlier, being with a roommate where you're like, hey, we're friends, and then next thing you know, like, man, I can't stand being around this person anymore. They make me feel terrible, right?
Right.
So that's something that he points out, that you have to, not necessarily fake it and whatever, but at least acknowledge that, hey, I'm going to bring this energy home, and my husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend's going to feel it, and they're going to be like, man, this is going to put me down. It's going to make me feel a certain way, and it's not a good way. Right. So I think that's from what I've seen and from, seeing, it's just, that's how a lot of relationships fall apart. And it never, sometimes you lose physical attraction, sure, but it's not the big thing. Like, you'll gain a little bit of weight or whatever, or you lose some weight, or I don't know. But I think it has to do more with how you make that other person feel.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there is something to the, at least for me, it's the physicality piece. It's not necessarily like the physical attraction, but at the core of it, I think there's a point where people can let themselves go, where it's unhealthy.
Yes.
And especially if you're looking at having a family, you want to have kids, and then you not only are you treating your own body terribly, I'm not saying the average just in general, like if someone's throwing their body away completely and they have kids that are looking up to them, and then what are those kids going to have the same habits that person's going to have? And it's like, are you teaching them, hey, mommy and daddy want to be healthy, so we're around for a long time because we want to be around for each other and our kids and like the people around us. Like, I think there are some, with anything, there are points where you get too far of an extreme. That's like, okay, now it's no longer that, hey, you've gained some weight and your ass is a little fat. Like, hey, I don't love you anymore. Like, wait, like, you know what I mean? Like, but it's, hey, like, what kind of example and what kind of person are you being just in general? Like, because if you're just going to throw your life away and, you're going to, if your dreams are to be on My 600-Pound Life, like, if that's your dreams, well, maybe our goals don't necessarily align. Right. And maybe I don't want to have kids with you because
you're not going to be capable of taking care of them.
I'm a little concerned for what kind of role model and, help you'll be around the house.
Yeah.
Not even just about weight, but like physicality or whatever. But if I just stop taking care of my diabetic control, you would lose complete respect for me. If it's something that I'm able to do and I just choose to
you're just like, fuck it, I'm just going to kill myself slowly in a miserable death.
Not only would you lose respect for me, but also like you're shedding a shit example. You're not taking care of yourself, which means you can't help take care of this family. Like, why am I here? You know what I mean? So it's not even like, hey, I gained a bunch of weight. It's just things that when it comes to your health, like, are you taking your medication that you need to be taking? Are you doing the things to be healthy? Because you were doing those things when I fell in love with you, and I have respect for you, and you had respect for yourself, and now you don't for whatever reason. Like, can we figure out why?
Yeah, well, that's like, I mean? I think you brought up the diabetes, and obviously we've talked about that a handful of times. if she didn't take care of herself, like, well, then you don't even love me enough to take and our daughter enough to take care of yourself to be around for us because we care about you so much.
Yeah.
I remember I had a buddy that his grandma, I don't remember if she was type 1 or type 2 at this point. But he had found out, I don't even know if we were engaged then, but he had found out that she was a type 1. And he was like, yeah, he's like, my grandma has diabetes. He's like, she's had one of her feet cut off, this, that, whatever. And she's like basically on death's door. He's like, but she still eats her Snickers bars all the time because she says she doesn't care. It's her life and she's going to do what she wants. And it's like, well, how much time and effort is her family putting into taking care of her? Because she's had limbs cut off because she doesn't take care of her own body. Like, what kind of respect is that to like your loved ones?
Your loved ones, yeah.
Like, whoa, obviously that's completely like at the other end of the spectrum, but I realized that. And that's what gave me at that time, I'm almost positive we weren't even married yet. But at that time it was like, oh, like this woman takes care of herself. Like, and she means it. Like, and like she has enough self-respect to actually like do that. And then it's just perpetuated into what we have now. It's like, do you care about your family enough to take care of yourself? And it's like, ooh,
it's huge.
Yeah. People want to talk about loving others, but do you love yourself and others enough to, be physically, not even physically fit, just be active enough to not almost be on your deathbed every moment of the day.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary.
It is. My gosh. Yeah. And then love, I think the word love gets thrown around a lot, right? And I think not everyone just sits there and thinks, hey, what's love, right? Is it really an emotion, or is it a combination of things that fall into what actually love is, right? I think, I don't know, just from what I've read and from what I felt, loving someone was not just like the infatuation, which is great. I think it is a part of love
that's
too.
Cool.
It's great. You fall in love with someone, you feel crazy, dopamine's going, all these things. It's great.
Yeah, love and lust mixed is a fantastic thing.
Yeah, infatuation.
One without, one of them without the other might get you into the danger sometimes, but it's a great thing.
But like loving a spouse or loving your significant other, it goes a lot deeper than that. It's respect, the companionship, the friendship that you hold with this person, and just being able to be loyal and respectful to this individual for a long time, and then I think that's what separates a lot of like, I guess like older relationships. I'd say like boomers, for example. Like I still see a lot of boomers. They still just ride it out until they're 80 or something, 90. They die, still married or whatever. And I don't think they're just extremely infatuated with each other, where they're just like chemicals in their brain are going nuts for 40, 50 years, right?
Right.
It's that sense of like, man, I committed to this person. This person has been a big part of my life. They've been there through a lot of the stuff that I've gone through, and and they respect me. They're here for me. I think that's how you really build a lot of love in a relationship. Is all those bits and pieces fall into place, make it be what actual love is.
Yeah, it's all of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you mentioned the vulnerability. I think that's one thing I do think that the boomers don't. Maybe I can't say that the boomers don't. But like the older generations don't have, we have a better capability of having the vulnerability. Because there is those generations, stereotypically the boomers, and they went through some real hard times. So like at least in this nation, the people here. Obviously, there's people throughout the world that are in their own generations that literally are going through hard times and have been for essentially ever. But in this nation, a lot of those that age group, obviously World War II and all those different things like lended to some of that trickling down. It seems like I don't know if this life just got too easy here and we just got real lax, but I think there is a small pocket that gives me hope that, you know, people are starting to recognize that you can still be dedicated and strong and kind of that hard-nosed man in a relationship as like those people that went through like World War II. Mm-hmm. And you can be dedicated as a man to your spouse, but also like it's also okay to talk to them. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like we got married and I'm committed and I fucking signed on the dotted line, so I'm doing it, God damn it. It's, you know, I am committed, but also I want to build a friendship and a relationship, and I want to be vulnerable with this person that, like, I'm not going to be vulnerable. That doesn't mean you have to be like out there, like giving public speeches about all the the worst things in your life all the time. Mm-hmm. And like really just like feeling your feels for everybody. But if you're not feeling your feels and telling your feels to your spouse, then you're locking a lot up, and that should be the one person, right?
It should be the one person. Yeah.
At minimum. So I think I think I find hope in that it's like people are starting to realize that, you know, because I grew up with my dad he was out of the military by the time I was old enough to realize anything. I think maybe like right after or right before I was born. But he's, you know, calculated and, you know, all these things. And then they split up when I was young. But like it was just a different time in the 80s, I guess, where like sometimes, you know, our parents had things to worry about and to, you know, growing up with a single mom. Like she probably had more shit to worry about than telling you how to feel your feelings. You know, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, all right, like let's have these conversations all at the same time, right? So like people can grow up and have these personal relationships with people and be able to open up to people when they're able to.
Yeah.
And they find somebody like that, because if you don't,
well, even if they're, you know, it's not a single parent, or, you know, they weren't going through something that's a hard struggle, like culture is different. Like I know nothing about Colombia, but I know that you and I only grew up 30 minutes from each other, and your upbringing is so different than mine. You look at what my family does as like a normal thing, and you're like, I've got no fucking clue what that looks like, what that feels like, because it just wasn't a thing in your family. So it's like when you talked about love, it's just so funny because you showing love is could be a lot different than how I show love. How you feel love could be a lot different than how Fred feels love. Right. Like, and so you can love your person and they may not feel it because you're showing them love in a way that they
don't know how to receive it.
They don't receive it that way. Like that's just not.
Yeah.
And that's it. You can same with your kids. Like, I know, like the love language book or certain quiz or whatever is like seems silly, but there really is like 5 specific ways that you can feel love and you can show love. And if you can figure out what that is for your partner and eventually figure out how to mesh them all together, so anytime your partner does one of the 5 things, you can feel love, like it's pretty fucking cool.
But to understanding it, right? And
you have to understand, like,
communicating it. Right?
It took us a long time. I was like, he's showing love and I'm not feeling it. He clearly does not love me. And he's busting his ass and I'm just like, I don't feel it, bro. You know? Because we were raised completely different. Not that one was right and one was wrong, but when you've only seen one thing and he's only seen one thing and they're completely different, how do you figure that out?
Yeah. Well, I think that really lends to how we started talking about in the beginning of, you know, you could look at somebody and stereotypically, we grew up. If we said, we went to the same high school, she was a grade under me, and we've been together for almost 18 years. Oh, so you guys are high school sweethearts? No. 7. It's almost 18?
Well, 18 years, I still would have been in high school.
Oh.
You could have still been in high school.
Okay, I'm terrible. Roughly 17, 16, 15, 10, whatever it is. Like, you can like pick up those things and like, I right now, I live less than 15 minutes away from the house that I was basically born in. But the time in between these 2 points, like from like, is so drastic. Everything that happened in between that, like, I have stories that would make a lot of people's jaws drop that like I've experienced. But like, you would never consider those things, right? When you just hear someone's whatever story it might be, or you look at somebody and just assume like, oh, okay, yeah, this, Juan's from Colombia. Okay, I understand what that means. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, I'm from 10 minutes down the road. Like, no one can understand what that means until you spend enough time with somebody to get to know them and understand their upbringing, their background, why their family did those things, like why they react the way they react. Sometimes it's not a choice. Sometimes I see her, the way she reacts sometimes. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, you're your father. Like, and then she does other things. I'm like, oh, that's your fucking mom all day long. Like, she just did that last week. Like, and it's so clear cut that it's like, okay, like you can see these little pieces of this person that's put together. And it's like, okay, now I get it. But like, the more you spend time with somebody, if you don't communicate with them and you don't get to know them on that, like, atomic level in a marriage, like as is the design and the idea, then they're just a roommate that you end up hating.
Yes.
Right. So like, I know you've said, it seems like that was a pretty heart-wrenching time for you just by the way you talk about it.
Oh yeah.
So I know you've mentioned it to me before, like how did you kind of come out of that and like grow from that?
And no one teaches you that either, right?
Wait, actually, how long were you married for? Because you guys were together for a long time.
So we're together for, I'd say, about close to 9 years. But we were married for 2. Okay. Yeah. So
see, that's why I hate that too, because like we dated for a long time and we were married and then remarried. But like, it's always like, oh, like you go to a wedding and they're like, oh, they do the marriage dance. Well, and they're like, oh, if you've been married for 1 year, sit down. You've been married for 5 years, sit down. Like at the end, like the people that have been married the longest.
The longest, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, what if someone's been married for 5 years, but they've been together for 40?
Yeah.
Why is the government mattering?
How come they don't get credit?
Yeah.
They've gone through a lot of,
where's the credit for that, right?
Exactly.
So sorry. I just,
that is true. Yeah. So, no one teaches you that either. Right? No one
how to
recover from it. So I was blindsided from it. I never expected her to want to break things off with me or feel, or that I made her see. At the time I didn't know all the things that we just talked about, right? Like how you make someone feel through your routines and your coming home and not being affectionate and not giving that good energy to him over time. I think she just little by little started, a lot of those feelings started fading because I wasn't making her feel good, just for lack of words. Yes. She just started, it was just we became like we would still had the, we could get along as far as talking to each other and we talked about our days and this and that, but there was a lot of feelings that we both kind of, like, for example, like she would come home and talk about work and how she hated things about work and all these things, and it happened all the time, right? And I would say, hey, why don't we move to Portland so you could finish school and get you a good job and something where you're not going to be so unhappy about your work and everything, and rather than you coming home and just being so not content about it, right? And like over time, those, like her talking about her work, like being so unhappy about it, it made me feel a certain way, right? I didn't look at it that way at the time, but yeah, it was like negative. It was a lot of negativity and I didn't like it. And same thing for me, like I wasn't content with work or situations in life, just stuff with family and things. And I think through time, she just didn't know how to tell me because, like you guys mentioned earlier, we all grow up a certain way, and some of us overreact about certain things or whatever. And, I think she was just afraid that I was going to overreact about her saying, hey, you know what? I don't think we can work on this anymore. And I no longer find you like my romantic partner, whatever. Like, I just don't want to be with you anymore. And rather than, her just saying like, hey, why don't we seek counseling or seek help from someone and see if we can rekindle what we have, because her and I had a good connection. We just got too comfortable and too much negativity over time. And she felt that she could get that elsewhere, that, and again, that's another thing where people misunderstand love. Like, it's hard. You fight for it. You kind of work through things for a while, and it's not just infatuation and feeling great like you do when you first meet someone. Uh, and I think, because we were together for so long, we lost sight of that. And yeah, I was kind of blindsided. We talked to one of her therapists on the phone, and I was kind of, at the time, I was like, well, look, this is a big decision. Like, this is a pretty big decision.
It's one of the biggest,
life changing.
It's the most, isn't the most stressful event that people go through in their lives, a divorce,
it was
or a death of like a parent or a child.
It's very similar. You go through grief, and I was trying to avoid having those feelings. Talk about negative feelings. Those are deep negative feelings. Knowing that person that you shared so much time with is now telling you they don't no longer want to be with you, right? And I was just devastated. So we seek her therapist, and we talked to her on the through a Zoom call or whatever. And as I mentioned earlier, Katie, she was just not good about expressing her emotions. So she kind of had her therapist kind of help her pretty much say like, hey, she's been feeling this way for a while. You've been kind of jumping from different jobs, and she feels like there's a lack of security. And then also the negative feelings, the fights, which they should never be fights. They should be, when you sit down, you should talk to your spouse, not in a fighting manner. You're going to have disagreements always. There's always going to be disagreements, but you have to find a way to, learn how to talk to each other in a way that you can understand and not feel so, where you have to get defensive. And
that's probably one of the most difficult things about a marriage or a romantic relationship, is being able to communicate with each other and have an argument, like an argument at its pure sense, not just yelling back and forth, but like a literal, this is how I feel, this is what I think, and being able to accept and listen to, this is how this person feels and thinks, and this is what they perceived. That's the biggest thing too, is understanding people's intentions, right, in relationship, like, and understanding you can't always just expect to know someone's intentions. So like if they did something or said something that was outside of something that made you feel great, it's like, all right, well, this is how this thing you did made me feel,
right?
And until sometimes where you really have to, like, even I've said it before, where it's the longer that Cass and I have been together, and the more conversations and the more open and the more we know each other, the more we recognize that there's so much more that we don't know.
Right.
And like that we continue to learn. And it's a fascinating thing to realize that, like, people are complex, right? Like I'll be the first one to say it, until I was about 30, I was a real shithead. Like, I was working on it before then, but it takes a while to like really, like, your frontal cortex isn't developed until like roughly 25. Yeah. So like your literal physical body is still changing. I mean, it still changes every day, because we get old and everything starts to sag. But like, even your brain development is still active and changing, very much active and changing until your mid 20s. And I can feel, looking back on history, it's like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, that's about right. Like 25, it was like everything was just in a different universe until so it's and being able to communicate that with somebody else that's going through the same thing, they don't even know what the hell's going on. No wonder it's so difficult, right?
It's extremely difficult. Yeah. So, yeah, pretty much, also to kind of, it's okay for me to talk about this. I noticed that she had changed towards the end of our relationship. She was being very distant. Something was up, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Like, I'm like, okay, is she upset at me? Well, we did have like an argument one day, and kind of back and forth, and I was disrespectful to her, which obviously is not a good thing, and that just kind of put, I think, the icing on the cake, where she's just like, okay, I'm done with this. I hate how he's making me feel. Don't want to feel this way anymore. So she started to become distant, and at the time, she started like, I found out, we never had any like loyalty or faithfulness issues, like never going through each other's phones, or I was never, we were never that type. Like,
I can tell you right now, if you're going through each other's phones on a regular basis,
it's bad. It's
you need to have some bigger conversations.
Yes. Absolutely.
Exactly. Because there's a lot more wrong than what's on that
exactly.
phone.
We never had that, because I trusted her and she trusted me, and I had that level of respect that I never wanted to hurt her in that manner or be disrespectful. As far as being unfaithful and things like that. And anyway, I found out that she was having this like emotional thing with this coworker of hers towards the end. And I think she was like seeking that just because of all the negativity that I was bringing into the household.
Because it wasn't there.
Yeah. And obviously it's not to justify her behavior by any means, right?
Right.
But I do see where she was coming from, as far as like,
you understand
seeking
the whys, at least.
Why?
Sort of
Yeah.
sense,
And and how I made her feel that way. And this guy was making her feel the opposite, kind of like how I made her feel at the beginning of our relationship. So, I didn't find out that she's going through this, and it was like terrible. It was like, oh my God, this is like the worst feeling. Like, how could you do this to me? We had our conversation, and she's like, well, it's just things haven't been working out. I feel like you're just my roommate now, and like, I didn't know how to tell you that it's just things aren't working out, and I feel like we're not romantic anymore, and you're not making me feel better, and like, feel like we're not growing, all these things. Like, all the things that she said then, I wish she had told me before, like, whatever happened with this guy that she was, having the emotional affair with. And so that's when we sat down with the therapist, and that's when she was like, I just don't think we can work these things out anymore. And I was just like, I didn't want to demean myself. I didn't want to beg or plead, or things that a lot of people do when they find themselves in the situation where someone you love and you care for no longer wants to be in your life, right? It's not easy, and you feel really weird. It's like, oh man, like, you feel like you're losing a part of yourself, honestly. So I didn't want to do any of that. I didn't want to beg or plead, but I was like, hey, like, this is pretty, like, we're married, like, let's try to see if we can work on this. Let's see if, like, you can back off this whole thing with your emotional affair, and like, I'm willing to work on it. Like, when we had this conversation with the therapist, and she was just kind of set on it. It was like almost like she had already prepared herself for this situation, which a lot of people do beforehand, before they're going to tell whoever that they no longer want to be with them. This is something it's like an inner battle that they've had for whether weeks, days, months, whatever.
Yeah, and just like you said earlier, like, it takes two people to mess something up.
Right.
Well, it takes one person. One person could easily really screw something up, but it takes two people to really end it.
Yeah.
But it also takes two people even more so to make it work. So if the other person's not willing to do anything about it, then and we had the conversation a lot too, where if you look at an individual level, if somebody has a problem in their life, whatever it is, a lot of times it can, people look at folks with like addiction, the only person that's going to fix that person with this addiction that's ruining their lives is that person. You know, you can't make them do it. You can't make anybody, because it's just not going to work. Like, but you can give them the tools and the support and everything that you want. But this part, like, for someone to do something with their life and to change their life around, or to change a relationship around, you can't make somebody do it, because I think that's technically kidnapping.
Yeah, it is. It is
in America.
It really is. And because you're in this moment of desperation and wanting to fix things, you know, you're kind of, your emotions are so heightened, and you're like, man, I got to fix this, like now, like, right?
It took how long to get there?
You start acting in ways where you're just like out of character, right? And at least I was able to like kind of just sit there and say, okay, I'm not gonna act this way. I don't want to be out of character. I can't be pushy. I can't make someone want to be with me if they're telling me that they want out, right? But at least I said, hey, look, we can try to work on it, you know, see if we can seek counseling, see if we can work on this. And she said, no. She said, I think I'm kind of set on this. I want to follow through and want to get the divorce. So I said, okay. It's like, I respect your decision. There's not much I can do about this, and kind of walked off. And then after that, obviously, kind of left the house, and I was devastated. And, you know, I didn't want to show too much emotion in front of her, just because, I don't know. That's just how I am. I didn't, but I was devastated, right? I didn't know how to cope with it. I knew that my life was going to drastically change from then on, because I just been with this person for close to a decade. And then now I'm about to not be with this person, and all the intimacy we had, you know, all the connections, it's pretty much like severed now, right? So I was like, what am I gonna do? Oh, let's recap a little bit. So I forgot. My folks they were in Oregon, they were in Corvallis. I was in Portland, right? My sister lives here in Worcester with her brother-in-law, with my brother-in-law. He works for Daisy Sour Cream. So they got like have like 4 nephews and 1 niece, and they live here. My parents wanted to be close to them, so they moved from Oregon.
Now they moved all the way back to the East Coast.
Right. So I was still in Oregon living with Katie, and they'd been here for like 2 years or so, and so I had no family over there. The only family I had over there was her and her family, which is 3 hours away. And I felt alone, even though, you know, I did. I mean, now she's leaving me, and like, what do I do?
I think too, not to interrupt you, but I think that's another important piece that, in my mind, I think that's one of the most vulnerable positions, in my opinion, that a man can be in. You know, it, particularly in a position where a man has kind of opened up themselves in a sense, where like for the longest time, it's always been, and I'm not, there's a balance here, and things that kind of run parallel lines. But like, you know, growing up, at least for me, there were feelings, feelings weren't a thing. You know, I didn't even have time for feelings. Like that was never like a thought. And there was always that, you know, and I don't mean to get too woo woo with like men talking about their feelings and crying and hugging each other and whatever. If that's what you'd like to do, like by all means. But like, there's something about like there was something about like you weren't even like to like talk about like I feel bad, or like even consider like why are these things happening. And you just kind of tuck them away. You know, that old adage, men just tuck the feelings away because they have too much else to worry about, and they don't, you know, they can't express their feelings. But if you get into a marriage with a woman that you feel vulnerable to, and being able to open up, and then it's gone. Like, not only it's like, at least in I can relate to something like that, where it's like, okay, like I finally felt open to another human being, and it's again just gone. It's gone. Yeah. And it's like, well, no wonder you have these just angry men all around, or you know, boys that grow up without any of anything about even controlling your emotions, let alone talking about your emotions.
Right.
But like, there's no ever conversations about understanding and like, all right, guess what, Billy, you're 13 years old and you want to hump everything, but let's not do that in crowds of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's also, an important conversation that boys need to be like, you are not, an animal out in the wild. Like, let's put the boner away. Like, all the way to that end of the spectrum. We do that, right? That's unacceptable. Yeah. But like, so why don't we talk about other feelings too? Yeah. Like, those are all hormone responses and emotional responses. Like,
that's what it is. Yeah.
That's all it is. Like, it's just physiological things that happen. And emotions are part of it, and relationships with other human beings. So like, I remember it was probably like 5th or 6th grade. My girlfriend broke up with me. I thought the world was over. And it was like, now looking back on it, I'm like, Jesus. Like,
what's wrong with me?
Like, relax. Like, and I remember it was just like,
the only woman that will ever love you.
You'll be fine. It'll work out. But we don't talk about those things, right? Like, it happens to everybody. But we just like, so I think being able to communicate about those things, and like I said, it doesn't have to be too woo-woo-y, but just understanding that, hey, we're all physiological beings that go through emotions and hormones and love, and we care about the people that we care about, our family members, so it's,
it doesn't make you lesser of a man or anything. We're creatures of like logic, but we're also emotional. That's how we connect with other people. Right. So it's not, whatever. And then most people are like, well, like you said, they'll bottle their emotions up, which, if that's your thing, then do it. But at some point you're going to explode.
It's not
right. It's not healthy. I don't think.
Right? I don't need you crying on me every single day. But if you're crying every single day, then maybe you should also seek some,
you need some help.
There with that too.
But it's okay to like feel your emotions. And that's kind of like what I had to do. Right. I was like, hey, so I lost a sense of my identity because my identity was with her for a long time. So I didn't want to stay in Portland because all I knew in Portland was her and I together, and the whole life that we built together. And at the time I was working as a trainer there, and I was doing pretty good, actually. I mean, I enjoyed my job, and but this whole situation really just, really changed everything. So in that moment of being like my emotions all over the place and like trying to figure out what do I do, I was like, man, this is like, it just felt like I had to run away. Like, I didn't think I was being a coward from it. I just thought that at the same time I was like, that's the best option that I have, was to restart my life somewhere else.
There's nothing left there.
Right. I just felt like there was nothing else for me here. Like, what do I do? And like, I need to be able to heal from this and like learn. So that's something that people don't do. It's
so that takes some,
it takes a lot of mental capacity to say, hey, you know what? I made a lot of mistakes in this relationship. How can I learn from what I did? Because obviously her and I caused this to happen. Our miscommunication, her lack of respect in some areas, made this happen. Right. So I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to find a way to like heal and restart, set some goals, build my new life, right? Just 2.0. I don't know. It's kind of like, I just, I just had to figure it out. That's just how my brain was working at the time. And
what better time if you run into a dead end?
Pretty much, and that's how I felt. I've ran into a dead end, and I
don't keep on running into it. Right?
I just what do I do?
Something else.
Can't keep
start something new.
So, I call my folks and I'll say, hey, look, Katie and I had a relationship. It's falling apart. She wants a divorce. I need some help. I need some help as far as like comfort, whatever, anything. Just I need to get out of here.
And your parents are still together after they reconciled in Nashville?
Yes, they're still together. Yes. So I think 40 some years, 50, 40 some. Yeah, quite a bit. A long time.
How long were they separated?
I'd say 2 to 3 years. I think it was 2 years, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's 2.
That's a pretty good amount of time.
That's a long time.
Yeah, to be separated.
It is. Yeah. And I think sometimes you don't value what you have until, that's a cliche. You don't value what you have until you lose it. But it's true. Sometimes you don't.
Cliches are cliches for a reason.
Yeah,
they're
because they're usually mostly truth.
It was very nice to meet you. See ya.
Bye, Todd.
You okay if I dig in here again?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah,
this is good.
I thought you might like it. It's really good. Yeah,
but so, I just, I felt like I needed that emotional support and people in my life that still love me and that still care for me and that would, just be support. That's what I needed. And I had a lot of good friends in Portland. But I didn't think it was a support that I was looking for, right?
That could be a different. That could be a different kind of support when you're newly single with friends.
Yes, and there,
sometimes you need that kind of support too. But
and I just
felt
wear
like rubber.
Oh my god! Yeah, exactly. No,
100%.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't want to leave a marriage directly into herpes. That's not something you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not what. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I'm gonna.
And I'm not saying that's wrong if you did.
No, I didn't.
Sometimes shit happens.
But it's not ideal.
Herpes is not my
But
thing.
It's not ideal.
There's a way to prevent it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I pretty much told myself, look, I need to bounce back from this. I am not gonna let this define who I am. I mean, in a matter of like, hey, I don't want this to like kill me. Like,
right.
I'm gonna bounce back from this. I don't want this to like end me and like just this is it.
You're way too
like
young
like
for that,
you
right?
you in 6th grade when you lost your girlfriend, right? This is the end of the world. Like I am no longer relevant to this world, right?
There's a lot left.
No, there's a lot, and I had to remind myself that I came to this world by myself. Like, I mean, as far as like I'm an individual and like as much as I, cared for her and loved her and I still love her. I mean, there's still love there, just not that same type of love.
I think you spend any type of good time with, for 8 to 10 years with somebody, right? I mean, regardless of what it's going to be, there's still
some kind of love there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find a way to not hold resentment and, animosity or stuff like negative feelings towards her because of the whole situation, right? So, I was like, you know what? Mom and Dad, can you guys help me out? I need to move. I need to find a gym. First thing I go over there and so I can start working, so I can restart my life again. And obviously exercise as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also the best thing. It's for multiple reasons.
Huge.
The best thing to do after any type of breakup or like hard life thing that's like really broken you.
Yeah.
Is find a gym because one, the endorphins that working out just make you feel better.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I don't care anybody that's worked out. She's not laughing at me. I'm just saying that's what. Even if you do it, even if you do it to look good because you got out of this relationship and it's like, oh shit, like let myself slide for a little bit. I got to get back in, in drafting shape.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the end, what you find, I think a lot of people, what they find through those hard times, at least like I started in the gym because, I was sports in high school and that's kind of where I kind of got introduced to it.
Right.
But then, I found, this one of my coaches was kind of like a mentor to me that like really, put a mark on my heart, but also like it gave me some like physical, with working and working out in the gym and doing like sports in school, like there was some consistency and, built there, but the physical aspect of feeling strong and feeling good about yourself, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize that working out also gives you. Like, yeah, if you've never worked out or if you haven't worked out in a long time, the first couple of weeks blow.
Oh, suck.
They're terrible. But once you get past that like disgustingness of it, if you can be consistent for a month, I think that's all. If you can be consistent for a month, you leave the gym and you realize, this feels good.
Yeah.
And then when you start to realize that like that physical exertion does, I mean, it does hormonal things in your body.
Absolutely.
It actually does shit.
It does.
Like,
Yeah.
so like, not only are you getting, it's like, people like talk about the runner's high or whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is. Like, you realize, oh, this is actually balancing my hormones. This is actually making me feel better,
right,
on a physiological level. But then I kind of like the way it makes me look too. So then it also gives you
it's a
that
bonus.
that
There's the bonus there.
the boost in, completely brain fart. No, not testosterone.
Dopamine?
No, well, that too.
That too.
But self-confidence.
Self-confidence, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the self-confidence thing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like, and then
Huge.
like, especially when it coming off of a relationship, it's
oh,
again, it's a stereotype, or it's a, whatever it is that, like, yeah, oh, they must have split up because they're getting back in shape. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because they got to be back.
Yeah,
like, because it's always like, well, you got to be back on the market, and then it's like part of it's like, well, maybe they've just both. Like, when some people split up like that, or someone splits up with a relationship and they start working out, it's like they've realized that you've neglected yourself and you've neglected your own like health and wellness. And that also contributes to when you're feeling good about yourself and you're feeling good physically, well, you're just going to be in a better mood.
Right.
You're going to treat the other person better. You know what I mean? And all these things that just, like you said, it just all ties together. So like, if nothing else, like doing some of these things for selfish reasons often lends to just benefits around
absolutely
everything, because it's like, all right, you take care of your life, then your relationships are better. Your physical, capabilities are better. You feel better. Like, it just perpetuates, and it's the great giant snowball, right?
Yeah.
So it's sometimes, if you go down the hole, right, you find yourself in that dark place.
Yes. And you will be in a dark place for a bit. You will. I mean, and that was the thing, like, it was either me, I go the drinking heavy or taking whatever, I don't know, pills or whatever, just finding destructive ways to kind of cope with it, or me finding positive ways to cope with it, right? And it just also shows like your character, right? Like, do I let this thing that, yes, impacted me severely, do I let it like kill me and drown me and just completely wreck my life, or do I let it make me stronger and a better human being, better partner for if I end up in another relationship eventually, right? So I told myself, you know what, I'm gonna go the positive route, because in a prior relationship before my Katie, I went the destructive way, and it just it was terrible. It never ends up good. And I was like, I'm not doing that, and just not. But moving here, even though I knew that it was going to be extremely hard, because I have to adapt to something new, change of everything again, right? This is like my fifth time moving. It's like, oh, here I go again. I have to meet new people, and have to find new work and all these things. And on top of that, I'm heartbroken, right?
On top of
all the chains and everything, I have to deal with this. So yeah, I would say when I moved here, I was like, I gotta find a gym. So first thing, I was literally like on the airport, like Googling, like, okay, what gyms are around? I'm Googling what gyms are around this area that will that are gonna be legit, and I'm thinking, well, I don't know what's in Worcester. I know it's a small town, and
man,
I'm like, well,
did
hopefully
you end
I
up
find
in the right place at the right time.
I think I did. I did. I mean, it was like, I think it was like God given or something that, shout out to Craig for opening that gym like a month before I moved out here.
Yeah.
I mean, probably the best gym. I'm not talking it up, but I am. Yep. It's probably the best gym I've ever gone to, and I've been to a lot of gyms in different states, and it all worked out. Like, I mean, I'm going through Google, and like first thing I find is Planet Fitness, and I'm like, there's no way. I'm not working out at Planet Fitness. Man. And then I like see all these other smaller gyms that I like. It's not what I'm looking for, right? So I see something that says warehouse gym. I'm like, dude, warehouse, that's gotta be cool, right? So I go to the website, and this was like recently, like, I mean, the place had been open maybe a month and a half.
So we talked about it. We've had Craig on the show multiple times.
Right. Yeah.
Who, for those of you who don't know, we've talked about it, but Craig Noletti, he opened up the Worcester Warehouse gym, which is close to us. We've talked to him. We talked to him and his wife about homeschooling. We've talked to he's brought his friends, the Bearded Butchers, on, who, if you haven't heard of them either, they're kind of an internet phenomenon as far as being butchers in the traditional sense. They're phenomenal guys too. Like it's, Scott and Seth, and but there's so many stories there. Like we talked to him, it was probably a year before he was on, and then after the show he told us, he's like, so no one knows this yet. He's like, but we're starting this gym, and I'm like, oh dude, like it's
how cool.
It's really close to us, and I've been a part of a gym that was unlike most gyms for most of my life. But it was further away because it was closer to us, and they built a bigger facility, and it was further away, and then COVID hit and everything was closed down. So then when everything opened back up, we found a gym a little bit closer, but it was smaller, and it's just, I'm used to those big, just a big meathead gym.
That's what it is.
Yeah, but also at the warehouse too, like first, like he has like 2 gyms basically in one.
Yeah, it's technically 2.
Yeah, there's like you walk in and it's it's like a gym with the the machine weights, and he's got cardio equipment and all that, but then like there's a back where it's like the free weights, and it's it's massive.
I love it.
Biggest gym I've ever been in. But so you literally came here a month after it opened up. So and you nailed it.
Yeah, I did. Or he did by opening the gym. And, I knew that it was going to be extremely important for my mental health to have a gym to go to and get out my frustrations and all the things that came along with, being heartbroken and such. So yeah, I Googled it, found it. When I landed here, the next day I go in there and I'm like, okay, so I go outside. It looks like a warehouse. I'm like, all right, let's see. Walk in, and I just like, I've only walked through the front room, which the front room, if anyone's been there, it's cool. It's very decent. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then you get to the back, and it's like even better. You just got a lot more stuff too, and a lot of leg equipment and squat racks and deadlift platform. I mean, just everything. It's like equipment I've never even seen.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's close to, was it 2.5 acres or something like? It's like 2 acres of just building.
I think something like square feet is like 24 or 27,000.
It's gotta be more than
which
that.
Is a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, so it was just like a playground for me.
Maybe it's only an acre of building, but it seems like it's a lot.
It's like, it was like, I just picture myself like no one, like me being heartbroken, like no one wants to play with me, but here's this playground that I can freaking go, and I'm just gonna
with people
make this gym.
In a sense. You may not know them.
Yeah.
But it's there's a point, I think, too, just to say this. A lot of people are scared to walk into a gym like that. And absolutely. I totally get it. It's terrifying. I understand it completely. But I think the vast majority of the people that are in gyms, even if you look at them and think, they're super self-centered. A lot of people have that view of people that, that do like the bodybuilding and, just they're in gyms a lot of like, oh, these people are just so self-centered and they're like so vain and this, that, whatever. Like, a lot of times people, most of the people I've ever met in a gym, they're just there to make themselves better. That's all it is. And most of the people, now we've all met assholes anywhere we go.
There's always
go to the grocery store. I'll meet some 83-year-old asshole that she'll just throw a fit. Assholes are everywhere. But I've met so many cool people that have been in the gym that you would think like, I've known people that for almost 20 years that I saw them when I first started getting into like the gym scene. I'm like, oh, this guy, he's like, I don't know if I want to get too close to him. He might shank me or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there's people like that like I've known to this day. That's like as many, muscles and tattoos and as vain or whatever you think they are. It's like they're some of the softest, like most generous, nicest people.
Absolutely.
Because all they are, they're in there just trying to be better people. And they just enjoy the physical aspect of lifting weights. Or, CrossFit. Like, sometimes those people are a little aggressive too. But but I know some CrossFit people that like for the longest time before when CrossFit was coming out, it's like, oh geez, these fucking people. But then I went and did it. And I met some CrossFit people. And you realize like, okay, there are those CrossFit douchebags in the gym. There are those powerlifting douchebags in the gym. There's the bodybuilding douchebags. There's the treadmill fucking cardio bunny douchebags in the gym too. That's because people can just be assholes and douchebags. But there's more people that are just in there just trying to do better for whatever it is. And it's like, okay, when you realize that you have some common goal of, hey, like we're just trying to be better here in whatever regard. Like it's a cool experience to find like a family away from home.
I think that's speaking of how I healed, I think that's a big part of what helped me go through all this. I don't think being sedentary was going to do it, being at home, just eating ice cream on the couch and watching Netflix or something. I don't know. It's not me. I'm a pretty active person. And at the time I was, I let myself go when I was married. I would just like let myself go as far as physically. I mean, I was training people, but I wasn't like really preaching what I was, what I was doing, which is, So I found this gym. It motivated me. I think when you go through heartbreak or when you go through something so extreme like this, you find like this level of motivation. It's insane. I don't know. I was so motivated. I was like, I'm gonna freaking crush it. I'm gonna get as strong as I can. I am just going to just get fit, and then that was my train of thought. But at the same time, I didn't realize how much it was helping my mental aspect of it. Like you said, the endorphins and the confidence boost, because you do lose that. You do lose self-confidence when someone rejects you and tells you they no longer want to be with you, especially
one person.
I mean, right? You meet a stranger out wherever and they tell you they don't want to be with you, like whatever, it's whatever, right? But
it hurts a lot more when the one person
when it's the one person you've been
to fuck off.
Yeah, it's literally you're just like fuck, like this is terrible, right? So,
and not only the self-confidence, but you said that the therapist told you like you going from job to job wasn't like reliable or wasn't super like safe for her.
Right.
So you showing up every day and proving that like you're disciplined and you are reliable because you're so not only are you building that self-confidence, but you're also building that like
self
like believability in yourself and like that you can trust yourself because you're showing up for yourself every day. Like the alarm goes off, you get up. Like each day that you can trust yourself. And that's a big part of self-confidence. Like it's not just like, oh, I'm confident because I look good naked. But like I have like the ability to be trustable. I have the ability to I am loyal like to myself and I can be loyal to other people.
Being accountable to yourself.
That is huge. So anyways. No, and I didn't really think about it that way, but yes, that is huge. And for me, I was like, I worked several jobs because for me, I was so different than Katie. It was just like she would be okay working a certain job and she'd be making good money, but she may hate this job, right? For me, I'd be different. I could be making good money, and if I hate this job, I just can't do it. I will find another job, and the money was there. It's just like she didn't like the fact that I would be, I guess, able to quit so easily on a job or whatever. And for me, it was more like, hey, I'm not happy, and I need to find something else. But yes, to touch back on that, I think the discipline and the loyalty that you have with yourself that you're building at the gym, it's important. It's huge, and it shows that. I think it's very attractive too that when you find someone at the gym that dedicates their life to not just physically looking good, because that like we said, it's a bonus. My thing was never really like, oh, I'm just gonna get as big. Like, yes, there is a little bit of that in there, but for me, it was like, this is helping me like get my frustrations out. It's helping me feel better.
Mhm.
And at the time, I would walk on a treadmill for like an hour and listen to podcasts, and I would listen to stuff about relationships and things, and how to be better person with others, and I really wanted to focus on that. It just like, I was like, dude, I just failed like this relationship, and like I'm not gonna be like, I don't want to feel like a failure, you know.
Right.
I feel like I let my family down, even though they never like, you let me down for your, you know, your relationship falling apart. But I still felt that way, you
Right.
know, and I felt like to myself and to her family, right? Because her family was like big, like I loved her family, and I didn't want to like, you know, I was like, shit, like I just lost this huge part of my life.
Right.
I want to be able to like be better myself, so I don't have to go through shit like this again, right? So yes, the gym was a huge part, and another thing was having therapy and talking to someone that doesn't have, you know, I guess,
Skin in the game.
yes, like
Yeah.
someone that's just
Yeah.
that's there to listen to you. I know a lot of people look at therapy like whatever, it's just someone that's listening to you, but if you get the right person,
Fuck those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think
Therapy is
to me has been fantastic. I mean, it was
like-
huge. It's huge. I mean, it's helped me a lot, and like, I don't think talking about emotions make you lesser of a man. I think, like I said earlier, we're creatures that are logical, but we're emotional, and that's okay to have emotions, right?
I would counter that it makes you, I don't want to say the word more, but I think that it unlocks more doors for just being a human in general. And like, who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, especially, so I don't want to be like, especially when you can be like rugged and manly and have those, because that's what I'm attracted to.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have polarity in a relationship, at least in a
You do. Yeah.
physical relationship, especially if you want like a good sexual relationship. Polarity is really important.
Yeah.
But also, like, that's just, that's what I'm attracted to as a female, my own feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you can be who you are and still be, you keep using the word vulnerable, that to me, that's feelings.
Yeah.
Right? You
Vulnerability
can be,
is feelings.
Yeah, you don't have to like sit there and talk about your feelings, but being vulnerable is like that unlocks so many doors. But you also have to make sure you're with somebody who is going to take that vulnerability and protect it and be really safe with it.
Yeah.
Because you throw it out there a few times and you get rejected or you get
ridiculed
or put to shame. Like, that door is now locked.
Well, I think that's a good metaphor. Like you said, that door's now locked. Where I think if we look at ourselves as like a house, you know, if we join a relationship with somebody, now we're joining houses, right? So if you think about your internal, I'm gonna try to not lose myself on this one, but if you think about like, well, it's like if we think about like, I often think as myself as like a structure, because I'm engineer brain, I have structure, and I've you know, talked about on the podcast I mentioned before. I have a tattoo that's a castle that's falling apart, and from the inside of it, it was basically through my 20s and the things I went through, I kind of locked myself inside my own dungeon. So if we think about ourselves as like our own little fortress, when you combine each other, you know, in a relationship, like man, woman, whatever it is, like, yes, you're becoming roommates, but you should also be becoming like, you know, interpersonal relationship, and your lives are intertwined. So your homes are now intertwined, as well as kind of your souls in a sense. So you said like your internal being is kind of intertwined. So like you let someone in your house, and you know, metaphorically here, you let someone in your house that you really care about, and they walk in, they go, Jesus, what the fuck did you decorate this place with? This is fucking gross. You go, like, this is my house.
Yeah.
This is like my insides. And if you receive, like, if you're vulnerable enough to let someone in and that's their response, well, yeah, you're like, well, maybe let's just hang out at your house next time. And you never have them back over because you're so afraid of what they're going to see in your house that you feel comfortable in. So it's like, like,
Yeah.
when you I guess it's also to that point, it's recognizing when someone's letting you in and recognizing that like, oh, like I'm walking into someone else's house here. Like, and I pretend, or I say that I care about this person. So maybe I can help them arrange their decor a little bit better.
Right.
Maybe I can suggest, maybe the blinds should be a little lighter. It might brighten up the room a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a lot different than
a lot different than
going, what the fuck is this place?
On their
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because then that person's never going to want to share. And
Yeah.
men, I think, are often in that position where women, you got this place decorated like a fucking bachelor. You got posters on the wall, blah, blah, whatever. And they talk, it's like, well, then fine. Then I just won't let you into my house anymore.
Then bring some plants in and whatever else you want to do to make it look a lot more whatever.
Yeah, I'll just pretend. I'll just pretend to like your shitty plants, whatever.
Yeah, or whatever.
And then men just tuck it in. So like, and I think women too. Everyone's a little different, but I think it's that recognition, right, of someone's letting you in, but you may not have someone that lets you in unless you let them in. It's this reciprocal thing.
Yes.
It's a constant flow of maintaining that and understanding that and communicating in that space where it's not easy.
It's not.
It's vulnerable.
Yes.
So it's
and like you're everything that you're touching base on right now, it's like super, super important. I feel like lately I've been working on when I say things, how am I going to make this other person feel? Right? Doesn't mean that you can't be truthful, right? Or that you can't be, genuine or whatever. But am I going to make this person feel like shit after I tell him something? Or can I say something in a way that even if it's a little bit, I don't know, that can bring conflict or whatever, can I say it in a way that won't make him feel negative, right? And I think that's, it's huge. And I think practicing it with everyday people,
it's even harder.
Members at the gym or just my family, just anyone. Like, I want to make people feel good. You want to make people feel good.
Well, especially clients, because they're going to receive things different. Some clients, we've talked about it. Some clients need you to be super direct.
Right.
And other clients are like, I need only positive affirmations and reinforcements. And it's like, okay, like I appreciate that you know that about yourself because now I know how to get through to you.
Exactly.
But if that person who needs positive comes after the person who's like, I need you to fucking move your ass.
Yeah.
Probably not going to go well.
Probably not going to come back. Yeah.
So it's got to be helpful for you to like ask, like, at some point you just have to ask, like, what do you need? Like from your romantic partner, from a client,
from
like,
anyone.
As a boss, Fred always talks about when he goes to these work meetings, they like once a year or whatever, they have to do those like personality in the workspace tests. And it's a lot like the love languages, like, how does Juan work in a stressful situation? What does he need? So then Adam can be like, oh, Juan needs help with in this, or whatever. Or how does Craig handle this?
Yeah.
When, and it's just, it can only be a positive. You know what I mean? To just like know that about the person. But people have got to know that about themselves. So like you're going to know all these things about yourself. And then hopefully when you do get in a relationship with somebody, they also know at least some of these things about themselves or are open to you like asking these questions.
Yeah. And they might find their way along that path at the same time. And that's one of the biggest things too, I think I've realized is like you've talked about is being happy with who you are. Just, you have to be, you don't have to be, but
you should.
You do yourself a lot more favors if you are content, not content because you're willing to just be content because you don't want to work any harder, but like understand who you are and know what you need and be happy with yourself and who you are. And if you're not, then you should work on that. I mean, I think that's pretty general advice, right? If you're not happy with who you are, well, work on fixing it. But until you're happy with who you are and you are comfortable and confident in who you are, it makes it really difficult to be comfortable and confident in a relationship as well. Because now, not only are you trying to balance this other person's feelings and understand what they're going through, but it's balancing your own at the same time. And often, if you haven't balanced yours already, your scale's not all set up and ready to go, all you're going to do to help them balance theirs is put more weight on yourself to balance it all out together. Yeah. When really it needs to be almost like an independent thing. Balance your scale first and then help your partner balance theirs. Because, it's like a drowning victim. You know, if you can't swim,
you shouldn't go over there.
Even if you're a strong swimmer, saving a drowning victim is a hard thing to do, even if you're a strong swimmer. So like, you have to understand that and recognizing that and learning that about yourself as you go through it. Like, those are some of the most important things you can ever do, because it helps you survive and help the other person flourish in a relationship. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I don't know how exactly Cass and I got there, but I remember, we've mentioned we were split at one point. When we got back together, we both said, what was it? One of us was like, we talked about trying it, like trying to get back, like working things out.
Yeah, working things out. Yeah.
And it was, she's like, well, you may not like me anymore. And it was, great. You might not like me anymore. And that's how it started. So it's like, I'm going to be
because
me.
we took the time apart to really like do some self-reflection. And, like, am I doing things that actually make me happy, or am I just doing things because he expected me to be this way? And clearly that didn't fucking work. So, and we both did that completely on our own with a little bit of help.
Yeah, there was definitely like in the professional, you talked about therapy, like, and therapy doesn't have to be like quote unquote therapy, but find somebody that you can talk to that has a neutral point of view.
Exactly.
And then guess what? That's not your family. That's not her family. That's not his family. No. That's not, it's definitely not the person you're not getting along with. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Dude. No, I was just saying that, like, we didn't just all of a sudden become different people, but we kind of were like, okay, what we were doing didn't work. So like, I choose me and my happiness now. And if you choose yours and your happiness, and we're going to be happy together, cool. But if not, like, I'm slow. And then we also spent like a year and a half also trying to figure out like still who we were and what we were and how to start this all over again. Yeah. But, we basically had the death of the first relationship. It's just crazy. It's just a lot.
But that's, to your point, it's, you have to come to it and say, this is who you have to first have to figure out who you are, right? Yeah. Who you want to be, or at least a goal, or at least a path. Set saying, goals, I'm not there yet. Like I'm not really the person I want to be, but this is kind of the direction I'm thinking. And if the other person's like, well, I want to go this way, it's completely opposite. Well, maybe that's not exactly where you should be. But it was being able to come together with a path that they wanted on their own and say, okay, let's see if our paths align. Then we can help each other, because without that, you're just having two people go two different paths. And then you wind up, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 60 years down the road and go, what did we do all that for? I hate your guts. Like, like that's terrifying. Yeah. To me, like it is. Yeah. People talk about like, I want to grow old with somebody. Like, that's great. But what happens if you grow old with somebody and you fucking hate them? Because there's a lot of people I think that have done that. Yeah. Like, that's equally as terrifying as ruining a marriage or whatever it is. Like, like you get to the end of life, life's not that long. Like, and that's another thing we talked about too. We see people that stay together for reasons that they shouldn't. Or it's like, our marriage isn't going so well. Let's have a baby. What? Yeah, like that's like, the last thing you should do. It's like, no. Yeah. So it's like,
it's not good. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's impressive. I think awesome. I that you guys were able to figure it, because that's the thing. I feel like a lot of relationships can be saved. It's just that there's not enough communication or willingness from the person that has already been fed up with the whole. And it's obvious, like the relationship that you guys were in before, that didn't work, right? It just, that's why it failed, right?
Yeah.
And the way you guys were going about things didn't work. But it's being able to acknowledge and say, hey, you know what? I think you and I just we're good for each other and we complement each other well, but the way we went about things wasn't right. Like we need to figure it out a different manner and how to go about things, communicate more, respect each other
Takes two
more.
to tango, right?
Yes.
Like you said
So
before.
I will say that we really cannot take credit for that at all because, like, without getting
Yeah.
too far into it, there was some strife that came out of the middle of nowhere, and then there was another one of us that was like, okay, then I'm out, right? And so we didn't reconcile. We weren't like, hey, let's sit down and figure this out. We were done, and it literally came out of left field for all of us, the
Yeah.
family, everybody. And it was like, I don't want to be on your back burner, and you can't deal with any feelings. You don't know what love is. I'm out. And then the other one was like, yeah, I'm out. So like we like divorced and
Just out.
everything.
Yeah,
so we weren't
done.
like, we didn't go through like,
we probably
the
set
shit.
a record for legal separation.
And then I was like, well, I'm not gonna be a back burner. You don't know if you love me. I'm out. Because I felt like I already dealt with a bunch of shit. And I obviously wasn't supportive of him because you don't communicate well. And then, we had got married, bought a house, had a baby within like 1.5 years of each other. And none of those were like to save our relationship. It was like what we wanted. And we got divorced when I was 24, right? So like I was young. He was very young. So like we don't get an award for like sitting down and going through the trenches together.
Oh no.
We separated. It fucking burnt to the ground. And luckily we both put our 2-year-old at the time first and foremost. And there was I could see the love he had for her, the respect he had for me as a mother, the respect I had for him as a father. She was our number one priority. There was not a single thing ever done. She was never used as like a pawn. And, we didn't want to hurt each other. We were just like, we're done. Like, this was not the thing for us. We're done. And luckily, like, I mean, it sucked. Like, our families were like, what the, but we got
out of left field out.
we got as much like support as, you can get in that situation. And I think we both on our own were like, hey, we're 24 and 26. We've got a 2-year-old, like, she needs to know what a happy relationship looks like. She needs to know what a happy mom is, what a happy dad is, content at the very least.
Yeah.
And we just both tried to figure out our shit, separately. He had things that he had to go through, and which really propelled me into things like why I've allowed things to happen and why I thought that I had to be a certain thing. So like, we really weren't like, hey, let's work these things out. It was, let's burn this shit to the ground because it's not what either one of us wants.
We built our house on top of a volcano. That we built our house on, basically that's what it was we built our relationship on top of, and I think a lot of people do this in a sense where they come together as semi-adults, right? Prefrontal cortex development, and they have all of these underlying issues that they've never dealt with. I think that's just in general, like, because you're just dealing through things. Like a lot of people grow up differently. You have different pasts, different childhoods, different family. Like we've talked about different family scenarios that we've talked about. So like different ways of dealing and understanding relationship with the people. And it blew up because it was just so much underneath there that, and there's always, you could always put a little more blame on one than the other, but it, like you said, it kind of, everything blew up and we realized, oh, we still have this child that we brought into this world. Let's try to survive this apocalypse. And then it just happened to turn out that we, both kind of did those things separately. And we're like, all right, like, well, maybe there's, I made a comment at the very beginning, like some of them just glimmer more than others. She's always just glimmered more than others for me. And I've, 7 years in, I figured out why. And that's basically kind of what it was. It was like, okay. And then we built something on top of, let's figure all our shit out. But to your point, like, man, like if you don't come as a person and you come putting too much on somebody else or relationship or never dealing with your stuff, then
Yeah.
Are you building your house on top of a volcano that's
Yeah.
just waiting, that may explode, may not? I don't know.
I still think you get an award because, like,
thanks, Juan.
Here's the thing.
He is always making people feel better.
Here's the thing. I think that's even crazier because, like, you're done, right? You're like, this is it, no more, whatever, right? You go your way. You go your way for however long. I'm not sure, year, 2 years, whatever, however long it was.
5.5 months. 6
Yeah,
months.
which is
well, it was.
We were apart.
Yeah.
And I think, even then you still found a way to value each other's company. And even though you didn't see it at the time, and, like you said, like,
I mean, her company at the time, like, physically pained me because it was like,
yeah,
you realize,
well, yeah,
just the pain that you're causing everyone.
Right? Yeah. But I think, like, you could, I guess, hypothetically speaking, both of you could have gone different routes where Cassie started dating someone else, you started dating someone else, or
we
vice
both did
versa,
that. It didn't work out.
or whatever.
You're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks because like it clearly wasn't me, right? And then you're like, oh my God, those 4 things were definitely me.
Yeah.
But you gotta step out to see that.
Yeah. You have to step out of the box and say, oh,
you have
shit, I was like part of this. Like,
I did things wrong too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, I don't know. I give you props for like saying like Katie had these things that were negative that she didn't like help the relationship because, she didn't voice her emotions well. But then you also were like, but I did this shit thing.
Yeah.
Like that's important.
That's one thing I've noticed. Super. It's like here's the
because
things that I did
it's really hard to make another relationship work if whether it's with somebody that you had been with previously or somebody brand new, if you're not able to take any blame for what happened. And I feel like the first 3 months that we weren't together, like I said, it was like 6 months that we weren't together. I was like, it was all completely him. All of it. Because it was like that initial thing that got the ball rolling. And then I'm like, oh, well, this added a layer. Shit, this added a layer. Oh my God, I added those 2 layers. And it's like, okay, being able to say that out loud, and being able to apologize for that, even though we had no intentions of being together, was huge. It like solidified things in me like, okay, I don't know what my next relationship is going to be like, but I know that I did this and this and this wrong. And I at least know I can step back and like, look at that.
Yeah.
And then he was able to do the same thing. And it was like, okay, now we have this weird sort of friendship, but also like we're sharing a daughter, and she was very much 50-50. I mean, we spent, I don't know. I think we just did an incredible job with her. And
I don't know how.
Being able to be cordial with each other.
It was
like,
I don't know how. Well, I
not
do
that
know how.
not that I don't know how, but it was just
it's hard.
We got very lucky that we both like both of our positions got very lucky that we both were like, all right, like because I guess maybe I grew up knowing, or at least having a thought of, all right, this is the kind of dad that I don't want to be, and this is the things that I don't want my kid to go through, and even if it means that her and her mom, or her mom and I are separated. I got it out. Her mom, even if it means like her mom and I are separated, like I still need to do these things. I still want to do these things. And that was honestly like my lifeline. And maybe that was what helped me do that, because there was some kind of strand left in my life, where it was like, there's something good here that I need to hold on to, that I can't let go, regardless of anybody, like regardless of myself. You know what I mean? And it was that, if there's something that you can not necessarily hold on to together, but in a relationship, like grasp the same thing. You talked about faith or your beliefs or, your commonalities or whatever it is. Like there's something that holds relationships together, and it's that common bond.
It is.
And it's you realize I never understood the whole like couples that were like, oh, they're best friends. I'm like, well, that's weird because like I don't know too many best friends that happen to be like of opposite sex that aren't romantically involved, right? Yeah. You know, but it's like, but they're. I think when you break out, there's relationships that you have with people in general. It can be business relationships, it can be acquaintances, it can be like religious or faith-based relationships. It can be romantic relationships, and each of those different types of relationships are all based off of different things. And you can be different types of friends with all of those people. And it's like, oh, like relationships and people they're different.
There are
through each different person. So it's like, man, like how do you cultivate those things and make them blossom in whatever way? And it's gonna be different for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we're built to be in relationships, I think. I mean, we're supposed to be in relationships biologically, I guess.
Yeah, I hear you.
You're supposed to, like, you know,
it's hard for one human to take down a buffalo.
Yeah. Right. It's been going on for years. When, you know, for
a hot minute.
I have a question. So you guys started your relationship as just friends. I never experienced that because we knew each other from high school, but we weren't like friends. You know, we started when we went on a date.
Right.
Do you think
it was to hook up with me?
Listen, Linda.
Sorry, continue.
Continue.
I'll push my mic away.
Do you think it was easier to fall into that just comfort level because you guys had so many years of only being friends without like the romantic intimacy part? Do you think it was easier to fall back into that?
Now that I think about it, I think it was. I think because we were friends and so close without being romantic, we both lost sight of that. And I think me mainly because she was seeking it like subliminally by like, hey, like kiss me and like wanting things without like, pretty much showing me, right? And I lost sight of that. I just became so, just like I told her, I was like, I feel like I became very like comfortable with you, and I lost being romantic, being like affectionate, saying, hey, get ready, we're gonna go on a date, let's go to the coast, and whatever, things like keeping that like romance alive, which I think is really important to have like date nights and have um not be like, whoa, what do you want to eat tonight? And like just go back and forth. Like, what are you gonna eat? Like, oh, what do you want to eat? Like, I think sometimes maybe I'm wrong, but I think women like the guy to just be like, hey, let's go do this. Like,
100%.
I think it's important, and I lost sight of that. I didn't see that, and I think being friends for a long time, falling into a romantic relationship, then eventually going back to, like she told me, she was like, I just felt like we became almost roommates, and I didn't feel the passion, and she told me, she was like, I felt like I was trying to tell you different ways that I was needing this for a while, and she knows I'm a pretty, I guess, whatever, sensitive guy. I just take things to heart, I think, sometimes, and I'm just like, okay, well, I think she felt like she was gonna offend me by telling me a lot of these things, and her having that lack of like opening up just made it even worse because she just wouldn't. She's like, okay, I'd rather just not bring this up to him, right? Because he's sensitive or whatever. And I think it's really important to be able to just say, hey, look, you can just tell me things, and like I told her, I was like, I'd rather you tell me like you're this, like, you no longer want to be with me, instead of finding out that you're having this emotional affair with this other individual. Like, obviously it would have hurt too, but it wouldn't have been like that.
Salt on the wound.
Yeah, it was like definitely pouring salt on the wound. So
ultimately, like, I love that you were like, I didn't do those things, but also like, men aren't mind readers. But I feel like,
so true.
right? I feel like women, like romantic books that women read or whatever, I feel like it's like the rom-coms that are not accurate at all. Like, The man immediately knows where the clit's at. He immediately knows how to get you off in 30 seconds. You never have to tell him what you want.
And he knows what your favorite flowers are.
Yeah, like it's
stupid.
We're not
so
mine right now.
just like men in real life are like, I saw this happen in porn and it should work this way. It doesn't fucking work that way. So
bad
if you're gonna watch the porn,
you gotta lube that up first, bro.
It's funny, but also like if you're gonna watch that or you're gonna read those romantic books, you have to understand like that's not reality. I could easily read book after book after book and paint him in a super shitty light.
Yeah.
But like it's not reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, but women are like made to, maybe they're not made, but they're presented with these things that this is how it should be. And it's not how it should be. It might not be sexy to sit down and be like, I need you to do this.
Yeah.
But guess what? I promise, ladies, they're going to appreciate it.
Yes.
They're gonna try.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Yes.
When it comes to sex,
shitty,
men are like dogs. You tell them what to do, they will try their hardest and they'll wiggle their little tails the best they can. But sometimes, you got to guide them for the treat.
Yeah.
I wasn't meaning just sex.
And that's what I was going to say. Not just sex.
No, but in general. Like, we need to know,
I need you to
what do you
hold
need
my
from
hand.
me?
I need you.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally, I need you to hold my hand.
It sounds weird and shit, but it is. Like I felt like I needed that.
Yeah.
And I felt like she thought that I knew everything that she expected out of me.
I don't think it's just her. I think just in general.
Women in general.
In general.
And I'm not trying to be like, well, women are this way.
Men do the same thing.
No,
men do the same thing.
I agree.
Yes.
I've had multiple friends been through divorce and she's like, he fucking sucks at sex. I'm like, have you told him? I mean, you don't got to tell him he sucks, but like, you guys have been having sex for 17 years.
Why don't we try this? Or why don't we do this?
You said, like,
why don't you try doing the dishes? That turned me on. Like, just even if you try, even if you don't do the dishes very well and there's still spots on them, I'd really appreciate if you tried.
Yeah.
But the try, just the effort, right?
I might be
putting
in the
forth
mood
the effort.
and I like, not that sex is like the biggest part of a relationship, but it certainly helps.
Yeah.
I feel like
because there's an
intimacy,
intimacy level there.
Yeah. So
it's
just
a big intimacy.
And not a wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Same thing with the dishes. If you're gonna scrub them,
thank you, ma'am, is just fine.
If you're gonna scrub them right. That's all I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess maybe as like the man, just say like, hey, I need you to tell me what you want. Like, I'm not going to be offended.
Yeah.
My feelings aren't going to be hurt. If they are, that's something I will handle on my own.
Yeah.
I just need you to be honest.
Well, that's
with
a problem
me.
too.
Like,
is a lot of men get offended and they can't handle it.
Yeah.
Because they're too fragile.
Yeah.
With honesty
with
from
honesty
their partner.
from your partner.
Yeah.
And I think that's why women won't open up and say those things, because they're afraid to hurt their partner.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, both ways. Yeah. But yeah, in this situation, I guess, it was like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just so easy to see how so many little things, accumulate on both sides.
Yeah. And then eventually just
Yeah.
all erupts.
Yeah, because it's too far. You haven't maintained what you have going on, and then you get beyond the point where it's no longer maintainable.
Yeah.
It's either you have to tear it all down and rebuild it.
Yeah.
Or you keep on running a busted ass vehicle.
Yeah.
Until it
really
explodes.
Explodes. Yeah.
And then it really explodes.
Yeah.
And then it turns into the disasters that you hear about.
Yes.
That's what, just people in general. Like, if you let it keep on stacking up, the straw that broke the camel's back. How many metaphors are there for things like that, where it's just, whatever it is, we stack too many things on top of it without cleaning it off, without maintaining it. And it's the same thing when you're dealing with other people. People change,
Yeah.
And if you don't change together,
you're
going to change apart, and you're going to grow apart from each other.
And change is like, change is good, unless it's negative. But for the most part, change is good. Yeah. And I think, that it happens. We get older, we find new interests in life. We find new hobbies, whatever thing it is. And you're going to change, right? You're going to change your perspective on this or that. And it's being able to accept that from your partner too, and saying, hey, you're growing. And change, sometimes it's correlated to growth, right? It doesn't mean like, oh, you change, like you're just a whole different person now, and like whatever.
You're different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, going back to like dealing with grief, because it almost feels like you've lost someone when you separate. And I assume you guys probably, even though you guys were still somewhat in touch and contact.
I mean, I think you still lose a piece of yourself, right?
You do.
It's not even lost someone, but you lose a piece of yourself. When you're together with someone that long, you have the intimacy.
Well, and she wasn't just your wife, like you said, like she was your friend first.
She was my friend.
So that's two different.
I lost my friend too. Yeah, like someone that I could.
Things.
There were things that I wanted to tell her when I was here, and I was like, "Fuck, I can't like call her because clearly she made it clear that she no longer wants me in her life." And it sucked. Like there were like a lot of things that were good or whatever or feelings, and I was just like, man, I wish I could just tell her these things, and I can't. So coping with grief, exercising, super important. Therapy with someone that has an unbiased opinion, super important. Relationship with God or spiritual relationship, meditating, whatever, praying, anything like that, I think it helps too, whatever your background or religion or your faithfulness is.
It brings you peace.
It brings some kind of peace to you, right? Relationships with others, so forming new relationships, very important. And learning that the way you treated your, and not romantic, just in general relationships, very important. To form new relationships, and then also taking time to heal. And I guess by that I mean like not jumping into another relationship. Some people do that, which whatever. To me, and I don't mean to shit on anyone, but I think it's a little selfish because you're still kind of like not healed from your past relationship. If that's how people handle things, that's okay. I think for me, it's more of a respect thing. I decided that I wanted to be, on my own for a while. I wanted to heal. I wanted to kind of like something that a lot of people talk about when you go through this kind of thing is work on yourself. And working on yourself kind of technically means just find goals or find a new trajectory as far as like what you're going to do in your life, like whether it's career path or losing weight or being more financially stable, whatever, just working on yourself, being a better person in general, whether it's with a new romantic partner, with your family, new friends, whatever. And I think that's a huge part of healing and dealing with grief, because grief is not a very black and white thing. I think it's a very gray area thing, because you feel it, and especially at the beginning, you feel it a lot. And for me, it was like, man, I've done drugs in the past, and I've gone through things, withdrawals and things like that. And it was very much like that, like feeling the absence of someone in your life that you've had for so long. It's terrible. I mean, you can't sleep, you can't eat, things like that. And a lot of people will go through it. I mean, you feel sick, for a long time. But then it's like, okay, how do I not combat that, but how do I cope with this? Like, how do I find ways to help me not speed this up, but like just deal with it on a daily basis? And I want to tell people that may be listening, going through this, it does take time. You're going to have a really shitty time at the beginning, but it does get better. I will say that it does. Like, it's like a freaking like roller coaster. It just, you get up and then you have your downs, and some days suck and some days are better, and I think you just have to accept it, that you've lost a big part of your life. Your life has changed. You have to restart. And you just have to stay strong. You really do. Focus on your goals. That's something I did. I wrote something down, and I was like, when I moved to Worcester, I'm gonna do these things, and I've done all those things because I was very disciplined and very committed to doing those things. And I wanted to be like, hey, you should be proud of me, but I couldn't contact her and tell her, hey, I did all these things. But I was able to tell my friends and my family and things, and it's good. It's good to really like find a sense of like direction when you've lost it all, when you've lost everything. Especially, we didn't have kids. We had a dog together, which she was like my dog. She was like my kid, But yeah, it was hard to like lose something and immediately like just not have it anymore. So um, the best advice I can give people is really do those things, like work on yourself, exercise, um, get therapy, meet new relationships. Um, oh, and new hobbies. So find new hobbies. I like pickleball. I'm weird. I really enjoy pickleball.
It's getting off.
It's a fun sport, hobby, whatever you want to call it. Um, and then just other things, just like I play soccer a little bit, not as much, but yeah, I guess exercising is kind of a hobby or a lifestyle.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's also like we talked about, exercising, doing something active. Not only is it giving you something to do, or giving you some kind of goal to achieve, but it's it's helping your body out.
Yeah,
being sedentary doesn't make anybody feel good. Like every once in a while, I love just sitting in front of the TV all day, but you do that day in and day out, you just feel like shit. And you don't realize how much you feel like shit until you go out and do something active, get some sunshine, feel good, have some laughs with some friends, and you realize, oh, that's right. This is what this happy thing is about. You know what I mean? And like you said, I think it's pretty incredible that you've seen that this quickly, how much, when something gets kind of ripped away from you, a part of your life that is, so much part of yourself that, just dumping shit into that cavity isn't going to help you out. Let's get down in there.
Yeah.
It's as uncomfortable as it is. Like, let's look at this piece of me that just got ripped out and let's fill it in strategically and, with intent and strength to build this up. So I understand that, it's, maybe you never really fill it in and it gets healed, but I'm stupid with all these metaphors and analogies, but like, let's build a strong bridge over this and recognize that there's a valley that got carved out of me at this part of my life, but I can traverse it back and forth in a healthy manner and safely and understand that it's there and recognize what it is, but still be able to move on and not destroy relationships with other people.
And
it's
huge
for you to be able to have that. Is because a lot of people don't. It takes them a long time to recognize that. So it's I really appreciate your story and
thank you. I know we've been chatting for what 2 hours. 3 hours. It's been a while. I appreciate you having me. I think this will help a lot of people to kind of get out of that shitty feeling or whatever, but just embrace your feelings. Know that you're going to be going through a difficult time, but know there's always like light at the end of the tunnel, As
long as you pursue it, right?
Yeah, you have, yes, exactly. You have to pursue it. You have to better yourself. Otherwise you'll just be sad and whatever,
Don't wallow in the shit.
Yes, exactly. Don't. I appreciate you guys for having me. It was a good chat. Yeah.
Thanks, Juan.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us today. Remember, check out the website, chronic-curiosity.com, to join us at the forum, have some fun, interaction, pick you up a comfy t-shirt, or if you just want to support the show and donate, all that is on the website as well. Thank you. Until next time. See ya.